Hey everyone, today we sit down with David Chatman. I heard David about a month ago on the Endless Endeavor show with Greg Anderson, and I knew our tribe needed to hear his story. We dive into David's experience with plant medicine and how it's radically changed his life. David is one of us. He's an authentic man focused on being the optimized version of himself, and he's passionate about helping others do the same. Please enjoy episode 23 of the Ministry of Freedom show. All right, so we're going to jump in. But, and my first line I have written before we jump in, please check out the website, ministryoffreedom.show. If you checked out our website yet. Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. No. We appreciate that. So there's merch with free shipping, and there's an About Us tab. So I'm going to walk people through the About Us part.
Okay.
So the About Us tab, where you can subscribe to the newsletter, which, fingers crossed, we're just about there.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're getting close.
Well, we really need to bring up that if you have signed up for the newsletter previously,
sign up again.
Yeah. Just go ahead and sign up again by the time this episode is out. Yeah. Sign up again, please.
Awesome.
And I apologize.
Okay.
I can sometimes be a moron.
All right, good enough. Seems harsh, but so please re-sign up for the newsletter like it's never happened. That's at the About Us tab.
Yep.
And we promise we're getting close. Also, you can partner with us financially on that tab if you're able and are led, because remember, I self-fund the entire operation, the podcast, the upcoming book, our man David's travel and lodging. It's all an expense, and it costs money to make this thing go. So your support allows us to keep moving forward and to grow the show. And of course, like, share, subscribe, and review us on Apple and Spotify. So on Apple and Spotify, the big thing is the reviews. Throw 5 stars on and even one word. So I've been figuring out that if people leave any kind of words, even if good, just one word.
Really?
Yeah. Helps grow it. Any thoughts on any of that? Got the housekeeping out of the way.
I was trying to think of a funny one word to leave, but I drew a blank.
Okay.
Just blank.
I'm sure the audience can come up with a lot of funny one words for us. So today we welcome David Chatman.
Woo. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I heard David's story a few weeks ago on the Endless Endeavor podcast with Greg Anderson. And as soon as I finished hearing the show, I knew I had to reach out and connect with David and invite him on. So I'm listening to the show, and I'm downstairs working out, and I have it on. It was weird to meet you because you sound slower, because I listen to all my podcasts on fast speed.
Okay.
So it's like, so I'm listening to it, though. I'm like, man, I got to meet this guy. So it's a little out of my comfort zone. I get done with my workout. I come upstairs, and I'm like, shoot him an email, and here's who I am, and here's what I do, and check out our stuff, and you want to come on our show. We talked later that afternoon, and 2 weeks later, here we go.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I felt that your heart and my heart were in alignment. Mm-hmm. Although we've had some different experiences, you're way younger. I'm obviously in way better shape. We'll get to David's fitness journey in a bit, because he's obviously freaking ripped and strong and a warrior and all those things. But
it's literally the first thing he used to describe you. He goes, "So this guy, you got to see this. Did you watch this episode yet? He's like super jacked."
Well, he is super jacked.
He was so funny. He was all excited,
and he was sitting with these other dudes who are super jacked. So today you're going to look even bigger. But seriously, though, I mean, your story's powerful, and I thought, your testimony, it can be life-changing for people that are in the audience. I also was very much drawn to, you talked about, you have this refusal to kind of kiss ass, and you're not going to blindly comply, which also lined up with kind of what they're talking about with Greg. And you're out there with Greg and Tyler, and that's how Greg ended up with his show. By not being willing to do that stuff. Your willingness to step out of your comfort zone and into new and unknown stuff, which is what we're going to unpack today. You're going to Washington and stuff. That was inspiring to me. So welcome, brother.
Thank you, man.
We always start the show with a scripture, and I ask all the guests prior if they have a favorite. So this was pretty cool. You're like, not really, but I'm drawn to Proverbs. I thought, okay, that gives me some kind of leeway here because there's a lot of Proverbs. Let me dive into that, pray through it, and figure out one that I thought would hopefully speak to you. And you don't know this one yet because I kept it from you. Here's what I came up with. It's from Proverbs 15:32. It reads, "Those who disregard discipline sabotage themselves, but those who are open to correction gain understanding." Reason I thought of you when I was reading that was obviously you're disciplined, and when you've had seasons in life where you're not disciplined, you can sabotage yourself, and you're a guy who got to a point where your life was, I don't think this is manageable anymore, and you were open to correction to gain that understanding. Your whole journey to Washington was to gain understanding.
Correct.
So I thought, what a good proverb. So maybe you carry that with you, and that's something you could kind of keep for your life verse. So I thought that was really good. So on Greg's show, you mentioned, we'll call it a sequence of events.
Yeah.
That led you you live in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Where in North Carolina?
Waynesville. It's western North Carolina.
Okay. So you went from North Carolina, jumped on a plane, first time on a plane.
For the first time ever, yeah.
It's crazy. Isn't that it's just the weirdest experience?
Years old, yeah,
my first time on a plane, I was, 26? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, not that far away.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's nuts. So you jump on a plane. You're just like, you know what? I am at this certain stage of life. I mean, going through these things. I'm going out to Washington State. So let's dive in the pool right there. You can take it in any direction you want, start back as early as you want. But I'm really curious as to, okay, so this is what's going on in my life. I'm in North Carolina. I hear this podcast, and the next thing I know, I have to be out there. And tell us about that journey.
Okay. So when I was growing up, I grew up in a till I was about 10 or 11, decent home, just normal, like kind of lower middle class home. My parents split up, and my dad he does what his dad did and what his dad's dad did, and he just kind of dips out. So I'm with my mom. She just goes down a spiral, and I don't even know this woman anymore. She gets addicted to meth. She gets addicted to painkillers, alcohol, and it started out like little bitty stuff. I remember like catching my mom smoking pot, and I was kind of like, I think I'm like 12. And I'm like, well, I've been smoking pot, so, whatever. Well, then it just progressed and it progressed and it progressed. And so it got to the point where I'm 15 or 16 years old. And as much as I loved the woman, she kept me fed most of the time if I was home. And other than that, she wasn't in the right space to love me and raise me and everything like that. I mean, she was losing her jobs. She was maxing out credit cards, because she didn't have a job. She couldn't keep one because she strung out on drugs. She's, when I was growing up, she had what seemed like a important, decent job at this like home healthcare place. And then I remember one time being embarrassed because she had took a job at a gas station, just because she was so. Well, she ended up losing that. I mean, she was just spiraling. I was watching her just spiral and spiral and spiral down further and further. And so then she meets a guy, and for most of my high school years, he lives in the house with us, and he's a psycho. I mean, he's absolutely off his rocker. He's addicted to meth. He's been addicted. He's been a drug addict for Lord knows how long at this point. And so the more he's around us, the more crazy things get. I mean, I said it on Greg's show, like my mom, I would couch surf from house to house, friend to friend. And I think all their parents kind of knew because they knew me my whole life. So they had seen my mom go from one person to another as well, because she was coming to my like sporting events and everything. So they could see what was happening. So if I was at somebody's house for a couple of weeks, nobody really said anything because I think they knew that was probably a better situation.
Is it a small community that you're in, so kind of people know others' business, or?
Yeah, to a point, but it's spread out. I mean, you live in like a big square mileage county, so it's pretty.
Got you.
We can relate.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So I'm couch surfing, and I remember getting a text from my mom, and she'd said, "Hey, whatever you do, don't come home." And I'm like, "Well, I haven't been home in a week or two, like, but okay, whatever." So I end up, and I think she could kind of tell that it was about time. I would go home every couple of weeks and stay a couple of days until I was like, had all my clothes washed or, got it, whatever. And then I'd just like leave again. And so I think she could kind of tell maybe it was about time for me to come back home. And she texts me that. I go home a couple of days later and I find out that her boyfriend she had moved in and like held her hostage at gunpoint and was waiting for me to come home so he could kill both of us and then take his own life. And yeah. And so that was just the start of it. I mean, there were a series of events. I remember having to leave my like junior prom. My friend I was talking to you about on the way over here, he's dead now. He come up to me. I'm like, high off my ass on ecstasy at our junior prom. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'm scared I'm going to get in trouble. I'm so high at our junior prom. And he comes up out of nowhere and he's like, "Hey man, we got to go." And I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, your mom got the crap beat out of her tonight." So I have to go tell my prom date, who I'm like,
is it by this dude, the same dude?
Yeah. And I have to go tell my prom date that I'm like in love with. Like, it's this beautiful girl, I've had a crush on her, and I have to tell her, I'm like, "Hey, I got to go." And she's like, "Well, what are you talking about?" And I'm like, I was too embarrassed to tell her what had happened. Yeah. So me, him, and his prom date, which is the girl, she was actually my next door neighbor, so she kind of knew what was going on too. We all, as a quiet car ride home, Yeah. So it was just a series of events like that were just over and over and over. And, my whole family at one point in their life, especially on my mother's side, has had a problem with drugs. Most of them, excluding like her, have got over it, but they've all dabbled. They've all been alcoholics. They've all everything. And so I do feel like it's kind of in my blood to a point, to have an addictive personality. So by the time I was, before I even got out of high school, I mean, I was snorting pills, eating pills, doing coke. We were doing coke before school, after school. This is 16, 17 years old. I remember us going to buy coke one time and it was meth. And all of us just kind of being like, "Okay, well, I guess we're snorting meth tonight," And I was so lost and I was so mad at my situation. And what's weird is through all that, I still did sports. Mm-hmm. I still trained and lifted and went to the gym. And that was kind of what separated. And I kind of think that's what separated me, because a lot of those buddies at that time, I've never been to rehab. I've never done any of that. Anything I ever quit, I quit on my own. Well, all my other friends, they ended up having to go to like rehab and stuff. But I was the only person that never had to go to anything like that. And I think it was specifically because it was like, even as messed up and as bad down as I was, I never let go of me training my body in some way.
Wow.
I would go to the gym gorked out of my mind, but I'd go to the gym.
How were coked up workouts?
I never did, I never liked doing the coked up workouts. I always did the pain pill workouts. Oh. And if you caught that at the right time with a little bit of caffeine, they were really, really good.
That's a sweet spot.
Yeah. So that with like a little bit, like 10 milligrams of Adderall used to work out really well for me.
No kidding.
But so all that stuff growing up, and my dad is like super absent. Me and him have a weird but decent relationship now. It's just kind of.
Is he in your area still?
He lives probably about an hour and a half away from me, and I go down there. I see him quite a bit. My kid knows him as his granddad.
Good.
Like,
that's good.
But
did that change when you had the kid? Did that kind of just change the relationship almost automatically
with my dad?
Yeah.
No, I actually told him I didn't want him around my kid.
Really?
For a while, I was like, I don't want you. I was like, you're so selfish and you're so just worried about you. I don't want you around my child. I don't want my child. I said, because you're really bad at making false promises. And he was through those teenage years for me, man. Like I needed a man in my life bad, because the only one I'm seeing is beating on my mom. And So no, it didn't. I think just now I'm really kind of ready to get things squared away with him, because I realize now, as much as I didn't have a good dad, and that made me not a good dad for a certain point in time, or a good man for like a certain time in my life, he didn't either. His dad was a nomad, man. He was all over the place with women, and he was just, that's what he knew. And he taught it to me because that's what he knew. Yeah. And I think he did it unintentionally, but it did get passed down. It was just a generational curse that got passed down like over and over and over. And that kind of tied in with when 18, 19, 20, I got into some legal trouble, and I thought I was going to go to prison for 5 to 10 years. Worked out. It was my first offense. Had to pay a bunch of money, do a little bit of like county jail time. I had to go to these drug classes and all this stuff. It was fun. I got through it, but then I got right back on the horse of, now I'm close to 21. I'm drinking. I'm smoking pot again. I'm starting to hang out with those same friends again. And all of that twined together with how I viewed the world. And I viewed the world as just a place that didn't have nothing for me, was out to get me. And I couldn't see anything but black for a long, long, long time. And that also that was my whole entire 20s.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, the whole entire time. It was me. And I always thought, well, I quit doing coke. I'm doing better. Maybe. I quit drinking. I'm doing better. I quit doing this. I'm doing better. I wasn't doing any better because I wasn't getting any better, and I had a problem with drugs, alcohol, women, being selfish, not caring about what anybody else had going on. Whatever was my way, it was my way or the highway, and that was going to be it. And that ruined more relationships with friends and girlfriends, and my wife now, who we're good now, brought it to the point where it was like, she's done, I'm done, I've got to move out, I've got to find a place to live. Like, I'm not going to see my kid all the time, and I'm hating myself because I'm not going to get to see my kid, because now I have to really realize, I have to sit back and think, wow, I've let all of that ruin my entire life. And I got to the point where I was like, I'd played around with taking my own life since a teenager. There'd been a lot of time, and there'd be a lot of times I think I unintentionally tried to do it. I was trying to push the limits a lot with the drugs. I remember when fentanyl first came out. Fentanyl 10 years ago wasn't what fentanyl is now. Fentanyl, we used to buy it from this dude that had cancer that didn't take it. He would sell us fentanyl patches, and we would all cut them up and we would chew them. Yeah. Or we would, I had buddies that would pull the fentanyl out of the pouch and out of the patches and shoot it up. I mean, it was like, I had a buddy, I don't even think I was out of high school when he was out of high school. He's the first person in our area that died from overdosing fentanyl. Oh. After shooting it, he shot it up at one of our friends' house and didn't even get the needle out of his arm and died. And so that was my group of friends, Yeah. And I had some really, really good friends growing up, and I still do. Some of them, I'm still like, we're good, we're in contact, and they're awesome, awesome freaking people. But a lot of them, man, most of them are dead. Yeah. Most of them are dead. Most of them have been in and out of prison. And for some reason, I've skated by the skin of my teeth for all these years.
I love that line because I've used it too. For some reason.
For some reason.
Yeah. For some reason. And so much of life's processes is the discovery of what's the reason, why. And that's kind of come up into your thought process. Yes. Why? How did I miss? Why am I still here?
Yeah. I've asked that question a lot. Somebody would text me or call me and be like, hey, so-and-so died. So-and-so died. And these are good buddies. And these were people that we were doing things together that we both should have been dead, didn't die, but then they end up dying. But I'm still here for some reason. I'll paint a picture. I've got one buddy, he's dead now. And when he was on his downward spiral, I was right in the middle of my own with him, like in our early 20s. I'd gotten so depressed and so bad off. And man, I couldn't keep a job, and I couldn't I just felt like nobody loved me. There was nothing like, I didn't feel like any woman would want to be with somebody like me. I hated myself, but I was so depressed I couldn't do something about it. And all I could do was just play victim and do drugs and drink about it, just to not to feel that way about myself, even though the next morning, here we go again. I feel the same exact way. And me and this buddy, one night we were snorting Oxycontin in my house, and we got down to like our last one or two, like 30 milligram Oxycontins. And he's like, "Hey man, we should, let's shoot these up." And I'm like, yeah, if this is all we got, and this is at the progression of me doing hundreds of milligrams of painkillers a day, like just ticking up and up and up and up. I'm like, well, if that's all we've got, yeah, let's do that.
Seems like the right idea.
Seems like the right thing to do, man. Let's make it work for the best for us. Yeah.
Yep. Seems right.
He calls another one of our buddies, an acquaintance, and he says, "Hey man, do you have any needles?" And he says, "No, man." He said, "But I'll tell you what, I know where one's at." And he said, I had one, and I put it in a Lunchables box, and it's in the trash can on Main Street, in this trash can, if you want to go get it and use it.
What?
So we go, and
Dude.
I watch him dig it out of the trash can, and we go back to my house, and he quote unquote cleans it out, and we take our last little bit of painkillers, and we shoot him up, and then pass the freak out and somehow not die. And then I wake up
and not catch anything.
And not catch, yeah. And somehow.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up the next day late. We slept. He was already gone. I didn't remember anything, nothing at all.
Yeah.
And I woke up the next morning. I was like, dude, what am I doing? I'm like, what? Where's this leading to? Like,
was that your last time that you went down the rabbit hole of that kind of drug use? Because I remember, I had my last, this is it. This didn't kill me. No.
It was the last time. It was the last time I ever had a needle in my arm. Yeah. Which wasn't a lot. I don't want to sit here and make it sound like that was a normal thing for me. Yeah. It had really become a normal thing for the friend group I was with, because we were all kind of stretched on money, and we were trying to make the best out of
looking for efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. So they're like, well, I'll just shoot it up. I'm like, well, I'll just smoke it off a tinfoil or snort it. And I was trying to find stupid ways, like, well, if I snort it and then eat real fast after, it hits me harder. Like, I was trying to avoid the needles at all costs, So no, it wasn't. But it wasn't long after that I was kind of like, I gotta quit this, man. Yeah. One, it's getting expensive. And two, I'm just like, if I'm to this point where I'm trying to mask everything with this, I gotta get off of this stuff.
Was that period after the jail possibility?
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, that was actually a couple of years after. So I didn't learn my lesson at all.
I'm curious, and I might be jumping ahead too quickly, but you went to work for the sheriff's department. Mm-hmm. So how'd that guy end up working for the sheriff's department? There's an interesting transition, because you're not using and working for the sheriff's department, obviously.
No, I quit everything. No drinking, no pot, no nothing.
Just cold turkey.
Well, it had been a couple of years, and I was like, okay, I'd gotten off everything, had a kid, moved in with my wife now, and I was like, okay, I'm not doing none of that crap. I'm floating around like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm like going back to school, but I'm working, and I don't want to go to school. I just want to work and make money. And I'm like, but I'm still not happy with myself at all. I'm not even, I hate myself. Every morning I wake up, I'm like, man, you just suck. So I'm like, I used to really care what other people thought. I used to care about what all the people and all the parents that really looked down at me when I was growing up, because they seen how I was acting but didn't know my situation. I really cared about what they thought of me. So I'm like, man, I just want everybody to not think I'm that person anymore. I don't want everybody to think I'm just this fuck up, you know? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be a cop. I'm like, I
love it.
I skated. I'm like, you know what? I skated by. I might be good on the background check thing because of that whole thing had worked out to where it was like, if I paid all this money and I do all this stuff, it'll look like I'm a low level misdemeanor person.
And it's because of the first part of that comment. You paid all the money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I told that on Greg.
Where's the check?
Yeah,
it's a misdemeanor.
Yeah, the day I
that's
paid,
what's wrong with the system.
Yeah, the day I paid all my money, they were like, "You're off probation."
Oh,
and I was like, "Oh,
coincidentally enough,
okay." So, so I'm like, okay, well, who's hiring? What do I have to do? I don't have any idea. And sheriff's office is 2 blocks away. They're hiring at the jail. I'm like, okay. I go down there. I call and I talk to one of my lieutenants he was a really good dude, but he calls me back. He's like, we don't have any room right now. I'm like, okay, man, just keep me in mind, keep my application, call me whenever. I'm like, well, whatever, I'll figure something else out. Well, he calls me like 2 days later. He's like, hey, man, got some room now. Because people just quit that job. I mean, real fast. They'll come and work a day and quit because it's rough.
Yeah.
And he's like, you come in, take this test and all this stuff, and we'll get you going. I go in, take the test, interview with him. He's awesome. He thinks I'm pretty cool, I guess. And a couple weeks later, here we are. And, I had like this pride about, I'm like, yeah, I'm not that person anymore. Yep. I'm like, man, I'm going to go tell everybody, well, yeah, man, I used to do that, but I work, I work for the sheriff's office now. Like, I'm a good person. Dude, I was the same person, the same exact person as I was 10 years ago, seeking all these things that I didn't need, that I thought I needed. Seeking approval from people who don't. When's the last time these people have thought about me? Right. But I was thinking about them so much. I was thinking about what they thought of me so bad. These people don't care.
Nope.
But that's all I've wrapped my mind around. For 15 years, I'm like, what's everyone going to think if it don't matter, dude? I literally took that job because I wanted to leave an impression on other people, what people thought of me from my past. That was the reason. Now, when I got into it and I kind of seen there was room to like help people, it morphed the time I was there. I was like, I can help people.
How long did you do that job?
I think it was. So I worked at the jail, and then I went to part-time, which I didn't really do the part-time thing. And then I went to the academy. And when I went to the academy after that, I didn't want to go back and work in the jail. Plus, my life had blown up at this time, the whole time I was in the academy, and that wasn't going to work, going back to the same sheriff's office. So I went to go get a job with another police department. They were all cool. They were gung-ho about, man, I had a lot of job offers coming out of school. I went through the academy and kicked everybody's ass. Nice. I mean, just... Nice. Anything. It was like I tried to make an example out of how better I was than everybody else at everything. You know what I'm saying? Because
I love that.
Yeah. Well, and it
became
kinda,
the focus.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of got to the point. We were talking about this at dinner last night. It was like it was sickening me to see some of these like deputies bringing people in, and some of these like local police officers bringing people into the jail, and I'm like, man, you're if I'm out of town and you're the person that responds to my house for my wife and kid that are in trouble, that doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah.
You suck, man.
They're incapable.
You're fat. You can't fight. You can't run. You can't lift. You can't do anything. You're incapable. And you think because you got a gun on your hip that you're the answer. Dude, I told you about the example last night of us, running that drill and taking people's pistols. I was taking dudes' guns out of their holsters in seconds.
I love that story.
I mean, it was like, and people got mad about that. People got upset about being made an example of like, I remember, one of those.
Isn't it crazy how they'll band together
about something could make them better?
Yeah.
So the mediocre hate the truth, and it's like glue for them. So the truth binds the mediocre together, and they need the ally. Instead of just being the outlier and being like, you know what, that does suck to hear. But you just took my gun from me in
and it
10
wasn't hard.
seconds.
Yeah.
And so this is in a controlled environment. If that happens on the street, I'm going to get shot in the face.
Yeah.
So thank you for showing me where my inadequacies lie and help me train up.
Yeah, and what blew my mind is like where we lived at, it's one of the largest square mile counties in North Carolina. I mean, dude, there's some houses out there. If you go to a call by yourself.
And so backup's 20 minutes away.
More sometimes. If it's a night shift and somebody's called out, yeah, you're looking at 30, 40 minutes maybe if something real bad's going on. So it's like, why wouldn't you want to be, and I would have people, and I found it especially more needed in the jail because, dude, we were getting into fights all the time in the jail. It was every day. But you would have people come in just flopping and waddling around and flopping in the chair. And then, something pops.
There's no standard at this point for these guys. So like once
No.
you're in, you're in.
No,
Are you
no.
grandfathered in until you just quit? Or
So when you go through the jail, you go through a academy, but it's later after you get hired and there is no fitness standard. There's nothing. It's pretty pathetic how easy it is to get through. You basically just have to pass a bunch of written tests and act like you're exercising.
so no running.
You
Pull up test, push ups,
no,
running.
they encourage you to do it. You know what I mean? Like they keep a marker test.
So their standard
But
is
you
it'd be
can't fail
cooler
it.
if you weren't fat.
Yeah. Now, when you go through the actual police academy, yes, there's standards and tests, and man, they're as nice as he was, I went through the academy with a dude. We went through the academy for 4 or 5 months, and by the time we got done, he still couldn't do good 10 push-ups at one time. Because we had this test, we would run an obstacle course. You had to crank out 20 push-ups. Obstacle course, you had to do like step ups and run and 20 more push-ups, and it was like, it wasn't all that hard, honestly. I mean, like, you could do it right now. It's not all that freaking.
I'm old and fat.
These people were young and fat. So
You're experienced.
yeah. So I had and we had a kid, man. He still couldn't do. He couldn't do 10 push-ups. Strict, good, fast, pump it out push-ups. And I'm like, man. When I started seeing that, and he kind of didn't care.
Yeah.
And a lot of them didn't care. And I would have guys, at the sheriff's office when we were working there, they'd be like, well, man, you don't have to be a power lifter to be a cop. I'm like, listen, dude, I never said that. I've never said anything like that, but I think...
I love the attack, though, by the way, because obviously you're a power lifter. Hey, you don't have to be a power lifter.
Yeah. And at the time, I'd quit doing that. I was like, okay, I can't do that. Might have ruined my body and my back and hips. I'm like, I need to get in shape.
Yeah.
So, by the time I go to the academy, I can run 2 miles. I can, and I'm not saying this to be any kind of way. I can run 2 miles. I can bench 3 plates. I can deadlift 500. I can do 100 air squats almost unbroken. I can do 50 push-ups unbroken, pull-ups, whatever, because I was really taking pride in stuff like that. And it just blew my mind how the people that I worked with and the people that I seen bringing hardened criminals into jail didn't care. It was man, I'm tired, man. We worked 12 hours. I'm like, yeah, dude, so do I. I work the same 12 hours.
Yeah.
And I get up early. If we're working nights, I get up at 2:00. I make coffee. I drink it. I walk out to the garage and I train. And I don't like doing it. So what?
You do it anyway.
You know what? I'm going to do it, man.
You get it done.
It's not hard to just do it. So that was really starting to piss me off working in there. And, that also goes back to that's a really bad ass kissing job to have. You're going to, everybody's like, oh man, your supervisor's coming. I'm like, okay. What does it matter, man?
Yeah.
And I would really take a problem with people being like, well, he's your supervisor. I'm like, dude, he can't fucking run a half mile.
Yeah.
He can sign papers and talk and shake hands and do all this good. But dude, when it comes to like getting it done, I'm the person in here getting it done right now. Yeah. So I don't really care if the supervisor's coming.
Yep.
I don't care, man. I'm going to do what I want to do because I've got this in control. And if the supervisor has a problem with it, then he can address it. But until then, like, I'm not worried about I don't care if it's the sheriff.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's the lieutenant, the captain. I don't care. I'm the one in here that's maintaining control. I can sway how the day goes. Me personally, with all these people in here, I'm the only person that can sway how the day goes, and I can make it good or I can make it bad. So I'm not worried about kissing somebody's ass because they're coming down the hall and I might need to watch my mouth
because
a little
of the
bit.
rank.
I don't care. And I've never cared. I don't care.
In my former business, the rank on the sleeve was the net worth statement. Here comes the richer guy.
Mm-hmm.
And act a certain way and say this. And man, I hated that.
No, I can't. Out of all the bad traits I've ever had in my life, that's one thing I've always stood by. And I don't know if it was just because I was being like negative and like in a super bad place, like, and just giving everybody like bad energy off. But I was like, dude, I'm not kissing a boss's ass. I'm not going to do it. I can't do it. And there's just something inherently in me that I'm just like, I don't feel like that's okay to do.
Yeah.
And I carry
it's
that.
It's inauthentic.
It is. And I don't.
Now, if they've earned your respect and their higher ranking, great. That's how it should work.
I love
because
that.
There has to be authority structures in all businesses and organizations, and I respect that and honor that.
Yeah.
But they need to earn that. They don't just get it because of a financial aspect or tenure or their name or whatever it might be. They need to earn that respect and then show it, and I'll happily get in line and understand my position in that hierarchy. I think that's the lesson.
Agree. But I think that for me, it's a little bit flipped where I automatically give it to them, but it's super easy for them to lose it. Where I'll automatically, if they've got the position and I'm starting somewhere, I'll automatically give them the deference, but they're on a clock.
I don't think that's bad either.
Yeah, right.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
That's the smarter way.
Yeah. Me looking at somebody.
But you usually eventually get to exactly the same place.
But you gave it a try. You gave them the benefit of the doubt, whereas I tended to be, hold on. Who are you? You better freaking earn it.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy or right. You're starting out with conflict. I'm automatically pulling my sword for what?
Yeah. And sometimes it wasn't real hard to earn it. Yeah. I would have a guy. I remember there was this one, he worked for the city and he was a sergeant and on his shift, and man, you want to talk about somebody just got after it, loved his job, freaking found real value in like training and just having a group of buddies and like everybody on the shift working together and like being cool with each other. And I remember first time I ever met him, he brought a guy in and this guy's just bad mouthing him. I mean, he's sitting there fingerprinting him. This dude's like, he's going to stay in jail for a while. And he's just bad mouthing him and he's sitting there and he's like, yeah, okay, buddy. Okay. And I don't know this guy. It's the first time I ever met him. And I'm like, I think this is probably about to get bad, and he's like, you know, man, you're this and you're that. And if you didn't have that badge on and all this stuff.
The famous line.
Yeah. Well, and sure enough, he lets his hand go off the fingerprinting machine and he pops the badge off and puts it on the desk. And he's like, well, it's not on now, bud. So what are we going to do? Are you going to keep sitting here and disrespecting me? You're about to go in a cell and I ain't got my badge on and we can go in the cell and we can get it sorted out real fast. And this is coming from a higher ranking, like veteran police officer. And I was like, okay. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
What was the frequency with which that type of thing happened? Did you see that? Because I don't know how that doesn't happen all the time. Off? Yeah. I mean, that should be a daily occurrence.
In the jail, that's a real easy occurrence because you can just say, well, step inside your cell.
Yeah.
Nobody can see us in there.
Perfect size little octagon.
Perfect. It's like, hey,
square.
Well, and a lot of times those guys, as soon as you stepped foot in there, they're like, man, they're just testing you. Yeah. They want to see if you're actually, if you'll do it, if you'll put a hand on them, and it was really bad with me because I'm like the biggest guy there. So
they're going to try you on.
Everybody, man. Everybody just thought that. They were like, oh.
Maybe that's why the other dude stayed 300 pounds. Yeah. They're like, I just want to go home.
They're like, oh, man, like, oh, you think you're big and bad. I'm like, no, I don't, but I know where this is going, man. I know where it's going. And you know what, man, it didn't take a couple of times of just somebody blatantly disrespecting me and me putting a stop to it physically in front of a lot of other people before all the other, for all those inmates. I mean, man, I'd be in charge of, I think when it really got bad, 170, 180 inmates at a time. And it would just be, sometimes if my supervisor called out, it would be me and maybe another male in the whole jail. So sometimes I was the only male in the whole place at nighttime.
With 180 of them.
That was on a real higher end.
So 100 anyway. So let's call it 20.
Yeah.
I mean, that's getting my heart racing. I'm like, maybe I'm not cut out for that, because I'm thinking 10 is.
Well, you kind of get into it. You're like, oh, it's not a good. That profession, I feel like, and not that I was in it all that long, but that's a good 5 to 10 year, and you need to get out.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because you're just heightened all the time. I'd be staring
constant cortisol, man.
Yeah, because you would be, we'd be sitting in there, and all the guys are out on free time. And so I'm sitting in there, and I'm watching all these screens, and I can access each door to each pod very quickly. All I got to do is walk down a little step and pop the door and open and go in and deal with whatever's going on. But I'd just be sitting there looking. And I'm like, oh, where's it coming? Because I could feel it sometimes. I'd walk into work, I'm like, something's going to happen tonight. And sure enough, most of the time, I could sit there and I'd just be looking for it. And I'd be like, oh, they're fighting over here. And they'd be in the back just meleeing each other, man.
Dang.
And then, you got to go in and do what you got to do. And if you don't have a good person working with you that you trust, sorry, I hate it for you. Which, man, is a lot. It's a lot. There was, you'd have guys come in there that would be like, oh, man, I'll do this and I'll do that. And okay, we're going to find out. And it's just I've seen that through lots of stages in life, just working out. Hey, man, I'll come work out with you. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, I'll be at the track at 5:30.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, it's just okay, well, and I would tell, back when this was more of a thing, training wise for me, I'd be like, okay, well, meet me here. I'll be at the gym at this time and we're going to do legs. And then here 3 hours later, they're like, man, are we done? I'm like, well, I'm not done.
Yeah.
Are you done? You said you could do something. Can you do it?
Yeah.
Because I'm here trying to do what I'm doing and you wanted me to help you. Are you going to let me help you?
Yeah.
Because this is the path to you getting to where you want to be.
Yeah. That's where it can get frustrating.
Yeah. And that's where you end up running a lot of people off.
Yeah. I can relate.
Because there's only a select few group of guys that I've ever known to be able to go and physically train with that would just go and go and go and go. And it was fun. People would come and then they'd fall off and you never see them again. And it was just, when you share that with other men and you get to the point where it's like, hey, we're just going to do something until we puke. That's how it's going to be today. It's hot in here. We're probably going to throw up and it's going to be fun. And then we're going to go eat lunch afterwards. There you go. What more can be better?
David, I like you, man. He's sitting over there thinking, okay.
No,
he's speaking Jim's language.
Yeah, that's right. I was also thinking, he's definitely a grappler in high school.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's because that was practice.
That was the thing.
We're going to work until we puke.
Mm-hmm. Do you wrestle in high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I love it, man.
Right. And that's when you say push-ups. I was like, if we're out in practice, you get done with a takedown drill and then the coach would yell, 50 push-ups.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're dead. You're dead tired. Right? And you're trying to knock out push-ups and they're yelling at you because you're not going down far enough and you can't push yourself.
You're
anymore.
like, man, my arms don't work anymore.
Right.
We've been rolling for 2 hours. Yeah.
You're covered in sweat.
Yeah. Mine
That's
that
awesome.
I always hated was we'd be at the end of practice. We've been live wrestling and drilling. I mean, drilling hard too for 2 hours. And he'd be like, spin drills.
Yeah.
I'm like, spin drills? What are you talking about, dude? Spin drills. And if you don't do them good enough, then we're going to run. And we'd all do them really good. And he's like, well, you're going to run anyways.
Yep.
okay, man.
And I'm going to yell out your name and you're climbing the rope twice.
Yeah. I'm like, God almighty, dude. Yeah, I get, yeah. There's something about that somebody that can suffer through, I think anybody that can go through like wrestling like that, especially anybody that can take it past like a high school level, but somebody that can do it at a young middle school and high school level, I truly feel like no matter how far you get off the path when you get older, it's in you somewhere to get back to whatever you want to be. Because if you can do that crap, dude, it's in you somewhere to go do anything else you want to do.
It makes me cocky, right? It makes me think that when that I can just drop 30 pounds in 2 days.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think anybody that can really, that's why I like, my kid, he's 7, he's in a wrestling club now. And it's
cool.
I guess the past 2 or 3 weeks, I mean, he's had a couple of tournaments. He's had practice 3 days a week. It's like, I mean, it's just now starting to really click to where he's like really starting to flow through moves. Mm-hmm. He's starting to hit shots. He's starting to do this. And it's like clicking for him. And he's like, oh.
When did he start?
4 months ago.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great period.
Yeah.
Where he's like,
beginning. Oh, if I do this, then I can do this. Yeah, he loves it. I actually seen him. I took him to the playground the other day, and there was a kid. They were all like, he's in first grade, and they were all first graders. And the kid was kind of being mean to this little girl that's one of his little buddies from school. And he like, I'm watching him. And I'm like, I seen what was, and I'm like, I'm going to see where this goes. Mm-hmm. So he pushes the kid, and I can see him telling him like, hey, don't be mean to my friend, the girl. And the kid pushes him back. Well, he just hits a double leg on him and flips him over his head and then mushes him down to the ground. And I was like, right? Like, good job, bud. Like, and I'm like, okay.
That was well executed.
Yeah, I was like, perfect. And I didn't say anything to him, but when we got back in the car, I told him, I was like, hey man, I seen what you did out there, and I know why you did it. And he kind of thought I was gonna be like apprehensive to him, like kind of getting physical with another kid. I was like, good job, dude. I was like, first off, that was a good freaking shot. I was like, that was really good, dude. Like, and he was like, yeah, like, I shot and I flipped him, and I'm like, got behind him. I'm like, yeah, dude, I know.
I love it. All right, man. So let's fast forward let's go to November of last year of 23. Mm-hmm. So around then, what's life look like, and how does that transition into December of last year when you are hearing and thinking about going out to Washington to take those steps?
So I took a job, hard, like manual labor job, which is fine. I don't care. I hated it because I felt like I was like, God almighty, dude, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was like making me sick. Every day I'm dragging myself into this job. I hate it. I don't like the people I'm working with all that much. I did have one guy that I worked with who, like, on the days I needed it, he would he would just preach the word of God to me. Nice. And there's some days I'd be like, dude, shut up. Yeah. And then there'd be some other days I'd be like, I'd kind of acknowledge it. I'd be like, okay, God, I see what you're doing there. I see it, but I hate it. Me and my wife probably going to get a divorce. I'm having to really think about, like, where am I going to live? What am I going to do? Am I going to keep working this shitty job that I can't stand just because it pays me decent money? And I'm full of guilt. I'm full of shame. I'm full of self-hatred. There's nothing good in my heart. There's nothing good in my mind. I'm being a bad dad. Because I hate myself so much, I can't be a good dad. I can't be good to my wife. I can't make anything better with us because I can't stand myself so much. I mean, I couldn't hardly look at myself in the mirror. And over the past year or two, I'd went to therapy. I'd tried all this stuff. And I'm like, man, I'd went to church, a bunch of different churches. And I'm just like, man, there is nothing working for me. Like, I don't feel better. I'm praying, I'm begging, I'm crying, I'm begging to God. I'm like, dude, take this out of me. Like, there's nothing coming out of me. Like, I'm just getting worse and worse, and I'm getting more toxic with my own self, which is making me more toxic for my family and everybody else. So and it's like every week it gets worse. And I'm like, man, I can't live like this, and I can't burden my wife and child and the rest of the world with my existence anymore. So I'm like really getting to the point where I'm like, dude, I'm going to kill myself. Yeah. And it become an easy thought. It become to the point where it was like December, it's like a week or two before Christmas. And I'm like, one day, me and my wife, we got in an argument about something that morning, and it was bad. And I kind of just decided that day at work, we're out on this job site, and I'm just like, I got to do it, man. I'm like, I can't keep burdening this one, because I don't know how I'm going to live my life without in a different way from what I've been living it. Like, I couldn't see the light at the end of that there was a different way to live.
You know that what you're doing is unsustainable, but you don't know of another option.
Yeah, and that was the only option I could come up with in my head.
Been there.
And so, I'd listened to Greg's podcast since he started, and I'd listened to Tyler. Well, Tyler had went on his podcast and talked about his previous life and how he used to be. And I was like, found a lot of relations in between. So let's
tell the audience who Tyler is. So Tyler Stanaway, Stanaway.
I believe so.
He has a podcast, lives out by Greg in Washington.
Yeah.
His Instagram is Tyler Stanaway, so you can find him there.
The Compassionate Viking.
Compassionate Viking. That's it. That's his podcast.
Yeah.
So the audience is up to speed on who we're talking about. So I've already mentioned, and I mentioned on almost every show, Greg Anderson's show. I'm like his biggest weirdo fan.
Yeah.
And he's probably like, yeah, this guy sends me emails and just leave me alone. So that's Greg's show, Endless Endeavor. And then Tyler Stanaway is his friend, trains jiu-jitsu with him, and also has his own podcast and some other ventures that we're going to get into. So now the audience knows who those dudes are. So you've been listening to Greg, you heard Tyler, and I've heard Tyler too over the last year or so. And when I first heard this guy, I thought, oh man, he's off his freaking rocker.
Yeah.
That was my first thought when I heard of this guy. I'm like, I'm going to keep listening because Greg's getting, into it a little bit. I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep listening. And then he says, I'm going to start my own podcast. So right away, I'm like, well, I've got to listen to that. So now I listen to both.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So, I've listened to him a few times, and I was like, man, I just related to him a lot. But here's the thing is I had not listened to Greg. I had not listened to Tyler in some time. I was just trying to fill my mind and my time with other things. It was like, it's fall, so it's like hunting season. So I'm trying to listen to everybody's hunting stories that are coming out while they're coming out. And haven't listened to them in a long time. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, we get through Christmas, probably a few weeks after Christmas. I'm going to go to this place. I'm just going to have to do it. I can't. So that day, for whatever reason, I'm running this machine at work. I come out of the bathroom and I'm on this machine. I'm like, dude, I've got to listen to something. And it was like my hands just moved. And I was like, what's this dude? Like Tyler. So I'm going to see if he's still doing this. So I'm like thumbing through his podcast list and I look for, and I find, I'm not looking for anything, but I'm looking for something that just pops. And he's got a title of one that just popped out to me. And I click it, start listening, start going to work. And the things he was saying, I was like, I couldn't deny. They were just so in line with what I needed and what was going on in my life at the time. I was like, man, I got to talk to this guy. I emailed him, and this is 9-10 in the morning. I email him. Well, he emails me back within an hour. And he was like, yeah, man, we can talk. Here's my number. I'll call you. I told him to call me at this time as my lunch break. He called and he talked to me over my lunch break for an hour. And he was like, well, what he does is he pulls ruins. There are these old Nordic ruins, and they're almost like, how people play with tarot cards. It's not the same, but that's the only way I can make it make sense if somebody has no idea what I'm talking about.
So yesterday, his podcast that came out this last week is about the runes.
Yeah.
And because I was like, I have no idea what this word means. So I listened to this and he's explaining it all. I'm like, okay. He's like, they're symbols and yeah.
And then when he says that, so I don't know, but I just envision like a leather bag and they're kind of like, they look like dominoes.
Yeah, kind of. They're just like these little circle pieces, and they've got these like Nordic like carvings in them, and he's just got them in like a little bag, and he'll just shake them up and then just pull. So he's like,
use that for inspiration for what's going on.
Yeah, or kind of like try to give you direction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he's a stone and bones shaman is what Tyler refers to himself as.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And if I'm butchering any of this, Tyler, I'm sorry, but
yeah. No.
I'm doing my best, brother.
So he's like, well, let's set up a rune reading, and I'm like apprehensive at best about. I'm like, dude. That sounds fucking crazy. And I'm like, I don't fucking know. And then I'm like, okay, whatever. What have I got to lose, dude?
Yep.
Right? So he calls me. I think it's the next day or the day after, whatever. I'm sitting in a parking lot and he's pulling these ruins and we're talking through everything. And man, the things he was pulling and saying to me, he's like, do you feel this way? Have you been doing this? Is this going on? And it was just boom, boom, boom. It was reading a list of my life at the time going off. And I'm like, well, that's kind of hard to deny, but because this is the only second time I've ever talked to this person. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay. And we keep talking and talking. And the more he's talking while I'm sitting in my truck, I'm like, I feel like I was like getting energy from him. I felt like empowered almost just from the things he was saying to me. So we get off of the phone. Well, I'll say this. So one of the things he does is he pulls something out of the bag and he's like, have you ever done psychedelic mushrooms? And I was like, yeah, man, but I was young. I took some acid and did this and that, but never anything like with any intention. It was mostly just like having fun.
A party, yeah.
Yeah. He said, well, I think that'd be a good idea for you. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, man, I hope he offers to help me do that because I don't want to do it by myself. I don't know anybody. I don't trust anybody. And for some reason, I just fully trust this dude I've never met before. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, he's like, yeah, I can look into some people around you or whatever. He's like, but, if you were closer, I would do it. And I was like, I don't care. I was like, I'll come out there. He's like, yeah, man. Well, if you want to come out here, we can do that. I'll help you. Mm. And I'm like, awesome. When are we doing it? And he's like, well, it's almost Christmas, New Year's. And he said he had a trip to go to Costa Rica the first of the year. And he's like, let's wait till after that. And I wanted to wait till after that because I knew that he was going to go down there and do like some ayahuasca ceremonies. And I felt like that was probably a good time to catch him after that. So we set it up, and it's funny. I go back home, and me and my wife are, fucking not really good at this point. I walk in the house, and I was just like, she could feel like a new energy, like radiating out of me. I was like, I can't tell you how I feel right now. I was like, there's something weird about that dude and the conversation we just had. And I was like, I feel like I could do anything right now. Like he kind of just reassured me, and I think that was just the first footstep on a new path. Because it was probably 6 or 7 weeks from that night till I actually met him. And there was a lot of stuff that, a lot of odd things that had happened before, in that 6
stretch.
or 7 weeks.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of times I was like, what am I doing? Yeah. So I'm gonna go out and stay with this dude I don't know. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And
here we go again. Yeah. I got myself into something.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm like, there's no way this is going to help. I was telling myself, I'm like, this isn't going to, you think this is going to cure? I had actually, God bless her, because she kept me from freaking hanging myself for a year. I had a therapist through most of 2022, 2023, awesome woman. And she was recommending me to go. She was like, dude, you got to do something drastic. she was like recommending me to do all this crap. And, you know, she's part of the medical system. She was like, you should probably take things.
This, and here's this script.
And I'm like, man, I just don't like that. And she's like, yeah, David, but you're bad. And I'm worried about you. I'm genuinely worried about you as a person. Like, she's a really good woman. And she was like, and I told her, I said, I think I need to go do like psychedelics. And she was like, yeah, maybe. She's like, but I don't understand how that's going to help you. You're just going to go do psychedelics and then boom, you're better. And I kind of had her saying that in the back of my mind. I'm like, well, am I going to go do it and then just be better, you know? So like that. And then it was just me. It was me being uncomfortable and scared, you know, and as like I told you yesterday, it was like somebody had just took me by both shoulders. And for that like month and a half period or whatever, it was just walking me around and just making me go day to day and making me look at certain things a certain way and certain conversations happen and me feel really bad about like, I was feeling guilty about going. I'm like, man, I'm going to spend this money like, you know, and go out here and it's money that I'm taking away from my kid and my wife and I'm going to go do what? Like, I'm almost getting a quote unquote vacation and she's here with him. And like, what am I doing? You know, I was finding every excuse in the book to not go do it because I knew what was going to have to happen was it was going to suck. And I was going to have to look at everything bad in the mirror and I couldn't run from it anymore. And I think subconsciously I was like, just scared of it. I was really, really scared of looking at myself and just taking in and being like, okay, man, this is what you are. You've done these things. They're horrible, but I didn't want to do that. Nobody, I don't think anybody when they're really down bad wants to do that because it's hard to do that. It's hard to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, dude, you suck.
Yep.
You're a bad man.
Yep.
You are horrible right now. And you really need to change some stuff.
Yeah, that's a tough talk.
Yeah. And that kind of relays back, you know, I told you the airplane story yesterday. So I go out to Washington and I meet Tyler and we go out to his property and he makes us I go to his house, we meet him, we talk, we kind of set some intentions. And before I know it, he makes us some psychedelic mushroom tea. We go out into his woods in his property. He's got an awesome little setup back there where it's like a really ceremonial type of thing. It's almost perfect for what we did. And we drink the tea and you know, I told him, I was like, yeah, man, we were just like kind of just chit chatting, but while this stuff's kind of working in and he's like, so you never been on a plane? And I'm like, no, I've never been on a plane. He's like, why? And I was like, just scared of it. And I told him, I was like, I watched Castaway when I was a kid with my mom. I seen Tom Hanks get ripped out of the freaking plane. And I was like super scared of that. And, my whole life, I was like, dude, that's going to be me. The first time I get on a plane, that's what's going to freaking happen.
Take a volleyball with you just in case.
Yeah. And I was like, man, I was really scared of that. And he's like, yeah, but why? Why? And I'm like, well, because I don't want to die. And he's like, no, why? I kept thinking of it and I kept thinking of it. And I was like, it was really bothering me because I couldn't figure out why. Well, this was right about the time I was like starting to feel kind of funny from the medicine. And I was like, and I had these thoughts starting to come up in my head and I just couldn't verbalize them real well. And he's like, well, don't worry about it. And I'm like, no. This is important before what's about to happen. I sit there and I thought about it and I said, no, I know why. I said, because if the door of the plane gets ripped off and I go freaking flying out the door, and I know that here in probably about a minute or two, I'm going to smack the ground and explode and I'm going to be dead. There's going to be a 2-minute period or whatever where I'm going to have to self-reflect and think about all the bad things I've done and all the people I've hurt and how I didn't live up to my full potential and all the chances and opportunities and relationships that I just pissed away my entire life. And I said, I'm going to have to sit there with that and know that now when I die, I can't do anything about it because I'm looking at death in the face. And I told him, I said, that's why I've been scared to get on a plane this whole time. Because if imminent death, I know it's coming and it's coming kind of slow, is coming to me, I'm going to have to self-reflect real hard and real bad so that it can, and I'm not going to like what I'm thinking about. And that was the reason.
That's heavy, man. Yeah.
Now I'm terrified to get on a plane.
I don't
Dude,
even
that's
want to
great.
take you to the airport.
No, but now.
Yeah, now
Yeah.
I'm just kind of whatever. I was freaking napping and watching movies yesterday. I'm like, this is cool, man.
So
Right.
I got to share this with you because you'll appreciate this because you know me. It's just kind of how I am. So I knew that David had only been on a plane one time. So I'm going to book him to come out here. And I thought, I'm going to ruin flying for this guy for the rest of his life. So I book him first class. So, the meals, the whole thing. So I said,
Just
hey,
the comfort.
So how was the flight? He said, yeah, the first class. And I said, so you're ruined.
Yeah.
And then I started talking to him about Southwest and how that works. And so,
Yeah, no, that was cool because the flight out to Washington, as excited as I was just like,
in the middle.
oh, I was in the middle.
Oh, you were?
Well, my flight had got delayed.
My first flight, I was in the middle too, because you don't know.
You don't know.
Well, I had actually booked an aisle seat exit row on the long flight. It's like 5
good call.
hours. And I was like, I was like, oh, I want some room. Well, then my first plane was late. So then they were like, well, you're just going to take whatever seat you get on this next plane. And I'm like, because I had to sleep at the airport for like 4 hours.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. And like just take a nap, wait for the plane. And then I seen where I was sitting. I was like, gosh, this is not going to be fun, dude.
Yeah, flying,
It's a test.
something else.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're out there. You're in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
You've taken the tea. Tea's kicking in. Hanging out with Tyler. So set the scene a little bit. Is it daytime,
Yeah, it's
nighttime?
probably about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
All right.
Nice day.
Okay. And he takes it too? So you guys both?
He does. Yeah.
Okay.
He told me he told me, he said it's very important that I take it too because
Okay.
I need to be on the same like mental plane that you're on when you're going to go through this. Because if not, we can't bounce off of each other. And I find that to be very important. I don't think doing that with a like a sober person, probably not the best thing.
Get that? It's interesting. So to sidetrack a little bit, there's going to be people that listen to this that think, here I'm this sober guy, and I used to do drugs and I've done it all, and so how are we talking about plant medicine ceremonies and mushrooms and things, and especially how does that line up with you're a Christian guy, and so I can already read some of the comments in my head now. I think that one of the parts of the mission is we need to expose the audience to alternatives to everything. I know that there's a testimony sitting here of a guy that was ready to end his life, who decided to go out there and act in some courage and engage in a ceremony that I know nothing about and that isn't something that I might run and do right now. But there's benefit in that because the end of the testimony is you're not there anymore. You're not in that dark place anymore. So there is value in the experience that Tyler provided you. Our mission is to provide the audience with this information and let them be discerning and understand, is this something they might want to look into? And I think there's value in it because I respect you. I've come to like you in the short time that we've been around each other, and you believe in it. And I'm not going to not talk about something because I think people from church or this person is not going to like it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and the thing when you say about that too, I was at that place and I was also seeking God, praying, begging God to just I'm like, man, help, take me, like do something with me. Like I can't live like this. I'm going to trying to find church, trying to read find something out of the Bible. I'm praying just all the time. I'm trying to do everything I knew how to do. And there was a wall there.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get to it.
This is interesting to me. I got to tell you, I'm super intrigued. So psilocybin, am I saying that word right?
I think so.
So that's the mushrooms. And there's nothing added to these. They're grown. Conversation I had with you yesterday, because I run everything through the filter of, my belief system. And I said to David, so God created this plant. It's growing, and Tyler takes it, makes you guys a tea, and you have this experience. It's hard for me to understand why there are people that follow Christ that are going to be so angry that we're having this discussion. But there will, and that's okay. But I want my mind to be open to anything that is helping people live better lives and to be better men and to be able to walk away from darkness, because you're at a dark place, man.
Literal rock bottom, worst place I could ever imagine.
And it's interesting because you talk about, you had the thoughts for a long time about, maybe ending your life. And I think a lot of people that haven't been at that place think that people that get there think that they just want to give up and they're sick of living and those things. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'll speak from my own experience. And this, I don't know how much into this I want to get today personally, but let's just say these have crossed my mind in the last season of my life. It was because I was sure everybody was better off without me in their life. I'm not some kind of sissy and I just can't handle hard times and I want to give up and I want to quit. I was sure that as I evaluated everything, that other people's lives would be better after they walk through the natural grief of me being gone, that they would be like, it's hard to admit, but I think my life's better off without Jim.
Yeah.
That's dark. And I had those thoughts as somebody that's in the Bible every day. And I had those talks with God, and I kept going because I felt that even if I did believe that was true, God was telling me, I have better things for you. And if you're telling me that you have faith, this is time to have faith. So I get that, man. And I feel for how dark that is, because it sucks.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It is. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So you're out there. Let's take you back to the woods. You got the tea, and within a certain amount of time, you're like, uh-oh, something's feeling. I'm feeling this.
After we had that the airplane conversation, and I had that realization, it really started like hitting me. And I get up and I walk around, and I'm just trying to kind of move and just kind of like breathe, because I'm like, okay, this is getting like, I'm starting to see things a different way. I've never seen them before. I come back and I sit down and I start looking at we had a really good fire going. And at this point, there's no more talking. And it's not a spoken thing. It's just that I can't talk. I physically can't open my mouth. And I kind of want to, because I want to ask him some things.
Yeah.
And he timed it right, because for the first 30 or 45 minutes, he was asking me questions and intentions and why I felt bad about certain things and stuff like this. And he was like, okay, David, like, these are the things that you need to leave here, throw it in the fire, leave it here. It's gone. And I'm like, okay. And up to this point, I still had this like apprehension of just who he was and what he was doing. I still had that thought. I'm like, man, I'm out in the woods with this dude. Like, we got all this stuff. I'm like, this is crazy, Well, then I think he knew when it was really starting to hit me. So he takes a drum he's got and he starts tapping on it. And Tyler had told me before that he had ravens on his property. And at first,
that's weird.
I'm like, well, I told him, I'm like, dude, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, no, you don't, dude. You don't have. That's ridiculous. So he starts tapping on this drum, and he calls them. He calls them Munin and Runin. And the next thing I hear is them just going crazy. Right above us.
Wow.
Right above us. Circle.
So he's like, do.
He's just
do,
like,
do,
and he starts saying whatever he's saying. And then he calls them and he like yells. He's like, Munin, Runin. And here they come. And they're just circling over us.
Oh, no.
And they start off really low to the point where they're loud. I mean, very loud. And then they kind of go up and up and up, and then they're gone. And then it was like, at that point in time, I was like, oh, there's something special about this guy. I was like, there's something going on here that I didn't know was that normal people could make happen. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, this is weird. And then that's about the time the top of my head just kaboomed. And I was like, oh, wow. And I found myself, he's got a this little like wooden half-built tent up there, and he's got a skull on it. It's a dog skull on the post for the tent. And right when it started working real good, I found myself staring at it. And I was like, I don't know why I was talking to it per se, but it's like it was telling me like, hey man, you can't run and you can't hide no more. Like, this stuff's in you, and the rest of the day is going to be real rough for you. This is going to be bad, and you can't run no more. And I found myself challenging it. And I was like, I don't care, man. I was like, you know what I've been through? You know the stuff I've done? Oh, I'm ready for this. And it was like, well, yeah, I hope you're ready for it, because I'm going to give it to you. Like, you're about to get it. You're really, really about to get it, man. And this is gonna be real bad. And I'm like, Let's go. It, man. Let's go. And it like, whatever it was that was telling me that wasn't lying, because it gave it to me. And it gave it to me very, very hard. So I ended up, I'll say this before I say this other part. I ended up taking more mushrooms that night, because even though I'd ingested quite a bit, it wasn't enough to get me to the point I needed to get to the point I am right now. So before I took more, I had this moment. I was sitting there by the fire, and I'm just thinking, and I can't talk. And the word why kept popping up in my head. I was like, why? And then I kept just running with that. And I was like, why this? Why that? Why did I have to go through all this stuff? And then I was like asking God why. I was like, God, why did I have to go through? Why did you put me in that abusive, drug-ridden home? Why did you make all these people leave me? Why did I get addicted to this and addicted to that? And why did I have the parents that I had? And why did I have to see the things I seen? And why this and why that? Why are you doing this to me? And why am I here? Why have I been so selfish? Why this? And I'm just like questioning every bad thing that had happened in my life. And it was like I could feel my heartbeat coming up higher and higher and higher and higher while I was asking why. And then all of a sudden it was just like a bubble popped. And that's the phrase I continue to use. It was just like this bubble had gotten bigger and bigger and bigger with me asking why this and why that and why my life was so bad up until this point. And then it just popped. And the next sentence that was either said to me or that I thought to my own self, whatever you want to say, was, because David, you had to go through all that because the voice you have can lead other people away from the devil and darkness and evil things. And that's why you had to go through all of that. And that's why the devil is so scared to let you go, because he's had his hooks in you all these years. You've been subjected to being under this evil stuff all of these years, your whole life. And it keeps pulling you back. The devil just keeps giving you whatever you want. If it's drugs, if it's money, if it's girls, if it's validation, if it's this, if it's that, he keeps feeding it to you because he's got you right where he wants you to be, man. And he wants you to be in that place so bad because he knows that if you get away from him and you start telling other people the things that you've got to say, that you're going to lead so many other people away from him to the other side, and he can't have that happen. And that's why you've kept up doing this crap your entire life.
Christian people, rewind that part because it's real. Because there's a supernatural realm, I believe. Mm-hmm. There's a darkness. There is a devil. There is a real God. And there's a battle for each of us.
Yeah.
There's a battle for you. There's a battle for you. There's a battle for me. We can't effectively battle in that supernatural realm if we're not willing to operate in the supernatural realm. Mm-hmm. So I believe there are thin places in our lives, and I think that this ceremony took you to a very thin place. A thin place meaning it gets very small between the supernatural realm and the realm that we're down here living in. Mm-hmm. And I think that this ceremony took you into the thinnest of thin places. And I think you experienced some supernatural realm.
I would agree.
I've experienced supernatural realm stuff, not from this type of thing, but through some very spirit-filled experiences in church and outside of church, by myself and with some other people. And thin places will freak you out. We'll get to what's next and what the voice is for and all of those things, because I think that's important. But when you say that it was said to you, I'll take a liberty here. That sounds to me like people say, well, do you hear from God? I think you heard from God.
I think so too.
And I hear from God, and it's not thunderclaps and bolts of lightning and this voice that's not, recognizable. It's sometimes in my own voice, in my head and in my subconscious. But God is talking to me, and he's talked to me plenty. But that does come from thin places and tapping into that supernatural realm. And I think this did that for you. I could be taking a lot of liberties here, but that's, as I hear your story, this is the second time I've heard it now because I listened to Greg's show. That seems very supernatural to me. Mm-hmm. And you say he had his hooks in you. And it's interesting that you said you've always gotten everything you wanted. I shared that with you yesterday. Mm-hmm. So when David got to town, we decided...
You said that?
So when we got to town yesterday...
Awesome. He says that all the time.
Yeah, you just said that. Yeah. So when we got to town yesterday, took David to his hotel, and I said, hey, I'll be back in about half an hour, and we're going to go, because he said, when I invited him out, he says, okay, but we got to train together. We got to do something physical together. I'm like, okay, we can do that. So we went to Flanagan, and we did our 5-mile loop.
Oh.
So that was cool, and we talked a lot out there. And one of the things I shared with him was... I went, kind of what I went through in 2023 and everything. And then I said, as I reflect back on it, everything I asked for, I got handed to me. I wanted out of this. I wanted out of this. I wanted this much for my businesses. I wanted this. I wanted this girl. I wanted this. And everything I asked for, I got. And we can be, when that stuff happens in our lives, we either don't recognize it or we think, look, God's given me everything that I wanted. Maybe not. Maybe when we ask for the wrong things, maybe there's a darkness handing us the things that we believe we want. Yeah. And we get so pissed off when we pray to God about some things and he doesn't give us what we want. Mm-hmm. And I think that hooks thing, that's got me a little jacked up as I sit here, because we need to get those hooks out of us.
Yeah. Because once they're in, they're in.
Yeah. They don't just fall out either.
No, you got to work.
There's intentionality. You got to, it's like fishing.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to do something to get them out.
And that's good.
And they're more comfortable in.
Right? Yeah, they are.
You just get used to, I got this hook. It kind of sucks, but I'm so used to it. Hey, you want me to take that out? No. What? Why wouldn't you want that gone?
Yeah. And that's one thing I've heard from other people. And Tyler mentioned it to me too. He said, hey man, he said, people just get comfortable. And he said, you get comfortable and it doesn't matter how bad your life is. If you're comfortable with your life sucking and you being negative and miserable all the time, you don't want to get out of it because it's comfortable. You're, as bad as it may be, you're comfortable there. And if you just want to stay there. And
I lived it.
I've lived it. And I think most of society lives that right now.
We're too civilized.
Yeah.
We're too domesticated.
I think most people they're depressed. If they're depressed all the time, they get used to it. And even though they want out of it super bad, it's comfortable for them. It's comfortable for them to isolate and not reach out, and not ask for help, and be depressed and eat crappy food and do all this. It's comfortable.
Yeah, I laugh at my parents all the time because they'll get comfortable with like a button not working on the remote. It's the exact same, and they'll live a decade with not being able to go to 6.
Yeah.
But like they'll go to 7 and then go down. And it's exactly that same mentality.
It's the most detrimental addiction that we have.
Comfort.
And you've been addicted to about everything, and me too. Mm-hmm. And I think the worst one for me has been comfort in my life, the most harmful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say because they all intertwine with each other. You know, you get comfortable being like, well, I can go around and get women and drink and do this and that. Man, that's comfortable. And it's also, you know, for somebody who's lacking something inside themselves, very validating, very good for your ego, very good for it, even though it's bringing your life down even more than it already is.
This has gotten a little more introspective for myself than I thought it would be. So as I'm hearing this, I'm like, dang, yes.
Right.
And that's why I know there's value in what you went through out there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I know there's value in, I'm not telling people, you got to get to Tyler and you got to go take some mushrooms.
No, I'm not either.
saying there's value in what you experienced. And I know that the value, I can see the value in you, but I know how it's making me feel. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting value from what you did out there. Mm-hmm. And I can see in the future that's going to be multiplied. I mean, how many times over?
Yeah.
We'll get there. So,
I got one question, and then this is going back. So I apologize to everybody. Come take us back, but it made me think because I have an extremely active inner voice, and it sounds to me like you do too. Like you're constantly arguing.
Yeah, that's been the detriment to my life quite a bit.
Right. And so when you say that you like you believe that God spoke to you, that inner voice, I think whenever I feel like God is speaking to me, that inner voice changes. It's like a different voice talking to me. And so I was just wondering if like when you're out there with it, when you say that, like when you say, you know, they said to me, it was just a different voice.
Yeah. Because it didn't feel like I was telling it to myself.
Yeah.
It felt like something, and it's really hard to explain just because you're in like such a different, you're not even in this world anymore, you know? But it was very different. And it was very different too, because the rest of that experience was just me being guided the whole time.
Yeah.
Because it was like, you know, I said this on Greg's show. I stood up after that and I was like, I've got it. I'm good. I got it figured out. I was like, I know what I'm here for. I know. And I started walking one way and something just stopped me. And was like, hey, man, you need to go the other way because you're not ready to go this way. And it was because I had, in my brain at the time, had made up, if I go left, this is the good, prosperous, fruit-filled forest. This is a good place. And if I go right, then it's bad. And it's like this hell, dark, like forest. And it visually looked like that at the time. So I'm like going over to this nice, like, prosperous forest, and something was just like, I mean, just cold turkey just stopped me right in my tracks and was like, you better turn around and you better go the other way because you're not ready to come over to the good, prosperous place yet. You've got some other stuff you got to unpack. And so I turned around and I went to that part of the woods. And you know, there's a lot of stuff in those hours preceding after that I dealt with. Like, you know, I would think about, I thought about my dad and like our relationship, and I thought about my wife and our relationship and my kid. And I thought about all these things and all these people and just these little, it was like I had a Rolodex going through my entire life. And I was able just to, it would come up and I would address it and I would deal with it. And I'd put it away. And it was like I was able to kind of like forgive my dad and just be like, you know what, man, this guy, he doesn't know how to love somebody. He doesn't know how to raise a kid. He wasn't shown love like that, you know? And I was able just to really, for the first time, be like, I get it, and just let it go. Because it's like the weight and the anger and the resentment of that's just been holding me down. It's not doing me any good having that in my heart. You know, it's not doing anybody any good walking around with all that hate and resentment in their heart. And it's just bleeding out into every other thing. But the most important part of that was, you know, I loved my mom a lot. I mean, she's your mom.
Yeah.
As bad as I seen her get, as frustrated as the arguments we got in, I loved the woman. She was my mom. And I do remember her as being a good, kind-hearted woman when I was a little kid. And she was always good and kind-hearted, even if she was an addict. But it just wasn't the same person, you know. Something had a grip on her. And I go back, and I start walking to this dark part of the woods. And
are we still in daytime, though?
It's still daytime.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
so this is happening during the day?
Yeah.
When you're out, oh, wow.
Middle of the day.
Really?
You know, it's happening pretty fast. And so I start walking, and I'm off by myself, and I'm just like really processing and thinking and all this stuff. And I find this like tree on Tyler's property, and it's just all these like, it's got some, just all this, I don't even know if it was there, but it's just all this stuff, and it just looks like this big black mass like flowing together. Like, have you ever seen the movie Venom?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Venom. Yeah. We like that at my house. Okay. Like, you know how Venom kind of crawls? Yeah. Imagine just a big blob the size of this room, but it's like Venom kind of.
Okay.
So I start like, I kind of think I made it up in my mind that like that was the devil. Like this just, dark blob energy type thing. And I was, I started challenging it. And I was like, dude, I can take more than this. I was like, yeah. I mean, I'm like, I've got more in me than this. So if you want it, just give it to me. Crush me. Crush me like a bug right now, because I need that, because I've come this far and I need something out of this. So crush me. So he's got this path cut on his property, and I start walking down the path. Next thing I know, there's just the path kind of narrows, and I start tunnel visioning on this path. And I'm like, well, I need to go down that path right there. That's the darkest place. That's where all my dark stuff's at. And I need to go down there and deal with it. Well, right before I'm about to go there, Tyler's like, hey, man. And he's very calmly. Yeah. And I kind of like, he scares me. And I'm like, and he just hugs me from behind. Like, he just puts his arm around me. He's like, it's okay. He had been watching me. I'm crying so hard at this point. I'm crying. I'm like, I'm surprised I didn't rip my own shirt off. I'm crying. I've got snot and drool coming out of me. And I'm just like, I'm just working through all this crazy stuff. And he just hugs me. And he's like, it's okay, man. He's like, let's calm down. Like, it's okay. I'm here. I'm here to help you. Let me help you. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm going to rip out of my own skin at this point. I'm so cranked up because I'm dealing with all this really bad stuff, you know? He said, let's go back here about 2 corners. And I'm like, okay. And so we go back, and it's closer to the fire. And he points and he says, sit down right here. Just sit down. And I'm in like no headspace to argue with this man at this point. I'm like, like, yeah, okay. Thank you. So I sit down, and I kick my legs out. And he like sits behind me. So I'm almost sitting in his lap. And he puts in jiu-jitsu, they call it a seatbelt hold. He puts that around me. So he straddled me like a seatbelt. And he's like, dude, just let it go. Let it go, man. Just relax, like loosen up and just let it go. Oh. Whatever you're dealing with right now, just let it go, dude. You can trust me. Just trust me. I got you. And I was like, the next breath I took was just like the biggest breath I felt like I'd ever took in my life. And I just melted into him. And I melted into the ground, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. Like, this guy's he's here to help me. So I closed my eyes, and he's like, just deal with it, man. I've got you. It's okay. And I'm still bawling. I'm crying. And I could see, when I closed my eyes, I could see Tyler in that same kind of way, swimming me to a beach shore away from like a burning ship that was out in the ocean. And when I got that kind of like vision, I was like, I can trust this man. I was like, I can fully 100% trust this dude. This dude is here to help me. There's something special about him. And I love this man. Like there is a brotherly, manly, like I would do anything for this guy. And once I accepted the trust that I had for him, I kind of look up and I seen a light 10 times brighter than that. And my eyes are closed, but I could see it. And I just knew instantly, because my mom had passed away a couple years ago. And it was through her own addictions. Yeah. She never got any better. Just ended up dying alone and in a real bad place. And I never dealt with that either. And it always made me feel bad because she died like that. You know, she never got to see what a better life was like.
Yeah.
And I always questioned, I was like, man, she had such a good heart, but did she go to heaven? It really bothered me. And it was always up in the air of like, I didn't know if she purposely took her own life or if she just kind of was gotten so bad off, she didn't realize what she was doing and it was not on purpose. And I always question, I'm like, if there's a heaven, if that's the way it is, and I kind of think it, you know, I'm like, did my mom make it up there? Because she was good and she believed in God and she believed in Jesus, but she just got off a bad path. And it really bothered me because I didn't know if she had made it to heaven. So I like close my eyes and I look up and I see this just bright light. And I knew it was her. I just knew it. There was no question about it. And I started asking her, I was like, why'd you do all that to me? Why? Why couldn't you get any better? Why couldn't you help me? Why couldn't you make me into a better man? Like you didn't show me anything. Like, you know, you left me in this horrible household with these horrible habits and I hate myself and I resent you and I resent everything that I grew up with and all this stuff. And I just kept asking her, I was like, why did you do this? And it was just like, she's like, David, I was sick. You know, my mental health was horrible. I was sick. I had my own demons I never got over. I never got through. I never worked through them, and they just come out through addiction. And she's like, I'm sorry, but I was very sick and I couldn't help it. You know, I love you, but I couldn't help it. I was just bad off. I was sick and I couldn't do anything about it. And I was an addict and I'm sorry and I love you. And I start crying harder than I'm already crying. Oof. And Tyler still got a hold of me. And this was how I knew at the time that he was like a special somebody was I could hear my mom's voice clear as day, but I could hear his voice clear as day in my right ear saying, hey, it's okay. And it's going to be okay. And it was like my mom, anytime I would go see her, when she hugged you, she meant there was like energy behind her hugging somebody. You know what I mean? Well, she would really hug you real good. And he's got his arms around me. And I could feel her hugging me through him. And I could also hear her voice and his voice saying, hey, trust this guy. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And everything's going to be okay. And it was like when I accepted the fact that I was like, okay, it's going to be okay. She says it's going to be okay. We had this moment of understanding, like, okay, I'm cool with that. I was done with it. Now, I was still in another dimension, right? But it was funny because I didn't have to say anything to Tyler. He was like, okay, we're done. Let's go back over here. And the next few hours that led into nighttime, every time, you know, I said I would have to deal with, like I was thinking about my dad and my wife and my kid and just these people and these things that had happened in my life before that. Without ever saying a word to Tyler, I feel like I know that he could sense that something was coming, bubbling up inside of me and that I had to deal with it. So through whatever way he would deem necessary, he would start like playing a drum or he would, he was like fanning me with an owl wing. Yeah, like but it was great because I was sitting there.
Owl wing.
Yeah, because it changes. Like you get that across
he
your
was
face.
like, he's standing behind me. The fire's going, and he's just like fanning me with an owl wing.
Yeah.
But every time he would do that, it would like make my heart rate go up.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he would stop, but when my heart rate was going up, and he was doing using whatever implement he had at the time, that was making all that stuff bubble up and bubble up and bubble up. And then I would just sit with it and deal with it and let it go. And then when I was able to let it go and deal with it, he would stop and he'd just leave me alone. He'd walk off and I would sit there and be like, oh man, wow. Like I feel better for dealing with that and like getting some relief from dealing with that. And he'd leave me alone for a while. And then it was like my brain would start going somewhere else. And he would just play into it. He'd be like, he'd start playing a drum or he would sing and chant or do something. And it was like it brought the environment of the world up. And it was bringing it up inside of me too, to let me like be able to process, sit with, and deal with like these demons that I had inside of me all these years, to where I could just let it go.
Powerful, dude. So you're out there about 1 PM is when we get rolling. Mm-hmm. And how long did the entire process last of the ceremony? Roughly. I'm trying to put a timeline on your time out there.
8 hours.
Okay. So you're out there.
8 to 9 hours.
You're out there.
I don't know, because time is
but
just
it's nighttime.
Yeah, by the time we're done, it's night. And it's starting to rain. And
okay.
Yeah.
So it's nighttime, it's starting to rain, and
bad rain or just the beautiful,
just the perfect amount.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It felt amazing. Yeah.
So what do you do that evening? Stay there? What?
Yeah. So I we get done with all that, and he knows when my brain is coming back to somewhat reality.
Oh, yeah.
Because he asked me, we're standing there. So now I've dealt with all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, now my mind's blown, and I'm like, holy crap, man. I'm like, what's going on here? And I start thinking about everything in my entire life, little and big, that had led me to that point. And I was like, and it had just never been more clear to me that, well, this was how it was supposed to be all along. I was kept alive. I was kept out of jail. met my wife. I did good. I did bad. I did this. I did that. I contacted this man. And then it was like, for the 6 weeks prior to that, it was like somebody was just guiding me through life, giving me some little examples and some, quote unquote signs or omens, whatever you want to call them, to where it was like, and it was blowing my mind at how every single thing in my, big or small, in my entire life had led me to that point, sitting right there with that man. And I couldn't, and it's really hard for me to explain it to someone who's never been in that headspace too. It's like, you can't conceive it. And it was the most, I knew it better, and I knew that my own feet were touching the ground right then. It was like, it was so clear. And it was like, and I told him that because after a while he knew I was kind of coming back to reality. He's like, well, how do you feel? And I was like, dude, this is crazy. I said, I feel like this, I feel like this chain of events was in stone before I was ever even born. I said, I feel like this has been part of the plan all along. And we sat out there in the dark and we talked about that for a while. I was like, man, I can't grasp. I kind of still can't. It's hard to grasp that all of these things were it's just a big plan, and it's like, so in some way I feel like I didn't have control over a bit of it. In some ways I feel like I did, but there were so many times where it was just like somebody just put their hand on my back and pushed me and was like, go do that, do this, to where I'm like, I didn't have control over it. So we sat outside and I'm laying in the dirt, just looking up at the sky, and I'm like, oh man, this is pretty, Yeah. And I'm trying to and I ask him, I'm like, how? And he's like, man, I don't know. I can't explain it either. But I will say is it was really evident to me. There's one thing, you know how, people, they'll say, well, we're all brothers in Christ. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all connected some way. We all come from the same place and the same people and the same creator. So there was one thing he was doing. He's kind of tapping a drum. Well, out there, there's a ton of cedar trees. So where we're sitting at, there's a lot of cedar leaves and little branches that had fallen off the trees, and they're all over the ground. And I was kind of getting these visualizations of a grid. Every time he would tap his drum, it's like the cedar leaves were a grid, and it was like neon light. And I was like, man, that's weird. And I stared at that for a long time. And I was like, I said, oh, it kind of come to me. I was like, well, I guess we all are kind of connected in a certain way. And what I kept taking from that was, well, here's this guy way over here on his side of the country. And here I am on my side. And through whatever it may be, we were connected. And at a certain point in time, he just starts pulling me across the grid to him. And I'm going and I can't deny it. I couldn't, there was something literally just leading me through to go see this man, and I'm like, and whenever I was really processing all that, when I was coming back to reality, I kept telling him, I'm like, dude, how is this possible? He's like, I don't know, man, but it is.
The obedience on your part in this process shouldn't be overlooked, because it's easy to feel those things, and I feel drawn to go do this, but I don't think we touched on this, but you quit your job, yes?
Yeah. Just up and quit.
Yeah.
Hey. Not up, I give him 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I told him, I said, I said, on this day, I'm done.
And then so you give your 2 weeks, you're done working, you're going to take a flight, and you're going to go out and see some guy who admittedly comes across as a little bit of a weirdo.
Yeah. Comes off as saying some very outlandish things.
And I'm not disparaging, I'm just teasing, but and I would say that, so there's a big obedience component on your part, and also there's a real courageous part on his part too, on Tyler's part, because he's saying and putting out there to the world. So you can look at his page and some pretty outlandish stuff. Mm-hmm. I will say this, this is maybe a plug for the internet that I'm not a huge fan of. It's a good thing about the internet.
It is.
We can find something positive that the internet has done.
Yeah.
Connected you guys.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would agree with that 100%.
So I think that's pretty cool. I made a couple notes, and I want to take us down a couple different paths here. I decided to look up a few different articles on this, because I know nothing about this process and these ceremonies. And and I talked to a couple people too that I know that are in this field. They say there's a psychedelic renaissance going on in our country, and that from a marketplace perspective, that there's a huge opportunity here because of what they see as the eventual total legalization of this process. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I asked myself, because there was a time where I was, don't legalize marijuana. And I was, and my mind's been more open on those things. My pushback is always that it's never enough and the line keeps getting pushed. But I could see that there is a benefit to having these things readily available to people that are really struggling with darkness. Not from a recreational perspective of, hey, let's go have a mushroom party. It's not for me to judge, but that's a different thing to me than what you went through. Hey, for prom, let's go out to the country and let's, take, that's different.
There needs to be intention behind it.
Yeah, and that's a great word. So I wonder, it's going to be an interesting season to see where this goes in this next, few years, because I think we'll see a different.
I think it's going to become very, very normalized. Kind of just like marijuana has.
Yeah, I do too.
That was a weird thing. I was out there and people were just openly smoking pot, and I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, dang, that's kind of crazy. But it was like everywhere. I went and stayed in Eugene, Oregon for a couple of days. And like I was walking up this trail and everybody's at the top of the trail just talking and like smoking. And I was like,
what world am I in?
I was like, dude, this is crazy. I was like, it was fun. Everybody was really nice too. So I mean, it was
they're
cool.
all in a good mood.
Yeah. I was like, okay.
Here's something cool that I found. So there are studies that claim that going through a ceremony like you went through increases your capacity for clairvoyance. I thought, okay, what's the dictionary definition of clairvoyance? What are they saying? The supposed faculty of perceiving things or events in the future or beyond normal sensory contact. Did you experience any of that?
Say that again.
Clairvoyance is the faculty to perceive things or events in the future. So being able to see into the future a little bit or see things beyond like the normal realm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
I wouldn't say that I could just see something, but it gave me this like undenying faith of what was about to come.
Which is pretty much the same thing when you think about it.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
I mean, it's like I can't, and in a way I can kind of see because I've always had these ideas of like what I wanted to do and where I wanted my life to go and all this stuff. But it's like, it used to seem like such a far reach because of the person I was being at the time. And now it's kind of just like, I'm like, yeah, that seems like it's going to happen.
Yep.
It's amazing, man. Immediately, did you feel a shift in mental health, your attitude overall, how you interact with others, and even your physicality? Did the ceremony affect those things fairly immediately?
Immediately.
Like that?
The next day.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the next day was kind of funny.
Was there any kind of a hangover?
Yeah, but it was just because I didn't sleep very well because I was just like, like, oh my.
Wired.
Yeah, well, I was just like, where does it go from here? And that was my big question. I'm like, well, where do I go? But the next day, but as the day went on and like I had some coffee, I was like, man, this is awesome. I felt amazing. I felt the best I'd ever felt my entire life. And I wasn't high, wasn't under the influence of anything anymore. So I was like, man, and then the days preceding that, oh my gosh, man. That was the best I'd ever. I was like, is this what normal, happy people feel like?
Right.
I was like, this is amazing.
I have those thoughts sometimes too.
Yeah.
Of what do normal people feel like?
Well, and my thing was like, when people say, oh man, I'm so happy with my life. I'm like, that feeling I was having, I'm like, was that what those people were feeling? You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think I'd ever felt that before that.
I generally smile at them and think they're lying.
Same. Yeah, I'm like, you don't know.
Okay, man.
I read a study
happy.
this week that there's only 50% of the population have an inner voice. That there's 50% of the population that walks around without an inner voice.
What do they do?
That's exactly my reaction.
Who do they talk to?
Right.
Yeah, because I spend the majority of my day talking to myself.
Yeah,
right.
The person I have the most conversations with is me. Sometimes I'm like, I can't wait to be by myself so I can have a real conversation.
You know what? That also kind of sounds nice to a point. Just being able to like
turn it off.
Yeah, just being able to have no thought.
Be able to fall asleep.
Yeah.
What's that like? What do they do at 2:30 in the morning when they're ceiling
and I'm
fans
sarcastic,
on?
So I'm making fun of myself. My inner voice isn't even like encouraging.
My inner voice makes fun of you too.
Exactly.
Sometimes I even want to call you. I'm like, listen to what my inner voice just said about you, dude.
Because I want to hear it.
Dang. That's astounding to me, man. The immediate, this isn't like, you got to do 10 ceremonies and then just an immediate shift in. That's pretty great.
I think that having the break from the time that you decided from the phone call, that period of time, like you were saying, because you're mentally preparing yourself. So it really wasn't an overnight thing. It really was a 6-week process.
Yes. And I think God was giving me little things before. So one of the big things, there's There's a lot of funny stuff happening. You remember that movie Paranormal Activity?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of that stuff going on around my house within those 6 weeks. There's stuff
touched on that. This is good.
Yeah, there's stuff flying off the air fryers beeping for no reason.
Oh yeah,
just over and over and over. There's stuff flying off the wall. There's jackets falling off hooks, and I'm like, phew, man, this is. But one of the big things was my last week at my job. Almost the whole week, I had a kid that usually doesn't work with us. He's on another crew. Well, he had to come work so we could finish this job up. And man, he was working with us all week. And I had never had much of a conversation with this dude. He's young, early 20s. He's had his own stuff happen to him. I can understand why he's not in a good place, but the whole time I was working with him, he's bitching, he's complaining. Everything's bad. Everybody sucks. My life sucks. This sucks. This job sucks. This person, I'll fight this person. I'll fight this person. I'll do this and I'll do this. And I found myself, I've got like headphones in, and he's like making really like rude kind of like comments. He was doing stuff where he was trying to pull people into like negative conversations. Mm-hmm. I didn't like entertain it. I just put my headphones in and did what I had to do. And I found myself, I was like, dude, I'm getting to the point where I want to physically hurt this guy. And I was like, and I was really debating back and forth of like, I knew I could. And I'm like, but do I need to? I'm like, I really want to strangle this man, kid, whatever you want. Yeah. I'm like, he just won't shut up. He's negative. He's just, everything sucks. His life sucks. He's like just this victim, you know? And it just went on for a couple of days. And then about the third day, when I got to the point where I was like, I'm going to drag this guy's face across the pavement if he doesn't stop. Like what a bad person. I just had like a bubble pop. And I was like, holy crap, man. That was me. That was me when I was that age. Complaining, talking about how bad everything was, being apprehensive to every single thing on earth and everybody's ideas. Everything sucks. Everything's bad. If you don't agree with it, I'll fight you. You know, and I was like, you know, almost immediately I like had some compassion for the dude because he's had some hard stuff. I know some of his story. He's had some hard stuff, and I was like, man, he's lost. He's, you know, and I immediately went from wanting to physically hurt this man to having compassion. And I was like, wow. I was like,
so that's supernatural stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it caught me off guard because I'm like, I'm not, this is a new thought pattern for me. Yeah. I'm not used to having this thought. Honestly, you know, if before then, and that thought wouldn't have come into and I wouldn't have felt that, he'd have had a couple more hours and we were going to have it out, you know, whether
especially
he wanted
to get towards the end of the shift, you're tired,
man, whether he wanted it to or not, like it was boiling up and it was, I just didn't want to hear any more of it. Yep. Yeah. And it was bothering me because he was trying to pull everybody into that negative conversations he was having and he's being lazy and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to kill this dude. And then I just had it and I was like, man, that was me. How many other people have had the thoughts that I'm having about this guy, about me through my entire life? There's no telling how many, because I was that person for most of my life. And that was exactly a week before I went out there. And I felt like God was like, here's some self-reflection in this world. Here's some self-reflection. So you need to look at this and think about this. So I've kind of felt, like you said, that time period was really good for stuff like that to happen. Real smart.
Things were making a shift before you even went out for the ceremony.
Exactly.
The decision emotionally and mentally to go do that.
Put me on a path.
Put you on the path.
Yeah, exactly.
Change the trajectory of your whole life by making the choice.
Yeah. Just taking one step and committing to something.
So have you found your capacity for forgiveness to have changed since you did the ceremony? I ask that kind of selfishly because my biggest area of struggle emotionally is forgiveness. And And I understand from a spiritual perspective and a practical perspective how detrimental unforgiveness is. And it's heavy, and you carry it around. It's like putting the ruck on, the weight on before you go walking. I feel how heavy it is, and it's tough, and I pray through it and things. But it is very difficult for me to get to a place of true forgiveness. And I'm just curious, did you feel any shift in that fairly soon after?
Well, I felt like I dealt with a bunch of it during that. But yeah, like I felt like I forgave most everybody and everything I needed to during that.
How about yourself?
Next question I was going to ask.
That's what I was about to say.
That's my struggle too,
I was
man.
I was able to look at it and look at everything for what it was, and I was able to forgive myself and be like, hey, man, you don't have to live like that anymore. You don't have to go down that path. It's okay. You messed up. But the bad thing is for you to keep doing that. And we don't have to live that way anymore, and we're not going to. But it was just like let me, because that was a big thing going out there, was I had so much shame and guilt, and I could not forgive myself for these horrible things I'd done my entire life. I couldn't get rid of it. But yeah, it let me just have peace with myself and say, that was then. Take that, what you learned from all that, and let's use it like in a good way. But you've got to forgive yourself if you're going to use it. So yeah, that was the most important thing. I feel like if I didn't forgive myself and then forgave all those people, it wouldn't have
right back at it.
Yeah, it wouldn't have. I'd have still felt all this shame and And listen, I'm not sitting here saying like, well, I don't feel bad about anything. It's like I do, but I also realize that I went through all that stuff and I made all these bad decisions for a purpose. Yeah. And now it's just at 32 years old, it's starting to come out, you know?
It's like a magic age, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
I've had that mentioned to me a couple of times. Yeah. And I actually turned 33. What's the date today?
16th.
So in a couple of weeks. I've had that mentioned to me too. They're like 32, 33.
So here's why 33 is so impactful to me. So 33 was the age Christ was when he died, when he went to the cross. So 33 is always, I've talked about it being a transformative season. And it was for me too, because it started around 31 and then I came to the Christ around 32. And so what an impactful season that was for me as well. But yeah, man, you got a lot of life ahead of you, dude. This is so cool.
Another thing with the forgiveness is I find it easier to look at. Now, this is hard for me because of some of my other beliefs, like just about society in general. But
we can unpack all that too.
I find it easier to look at people out in public. You know, somebody that's like, same shit, different day, blah, 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 blah. You know, one of those people, it's like not got much good to say. Used to, I'd be like, God, shut up. You know, like, but I'm, no better. And now I'm kind of like, well, what's happened to them? What do they got going on? I'm a little bit more like introspective of like, well, maybe this person's just hurting and they're not having a good day. Maybe they haven't had a good 20 years. Maybe they haven't had a good year. Maybe this happened and this happened. So it makes me think more when I talk to strangers. And when they're having a bad, I've been trying to make like a super conscious effort to like send them good stuff. Like, hey, how you doing? Like, hey, you know what I mean? Like smiling at them and stuff, because even if they're being super Debbie Downer, and they could think, well, that guy was nice, and me, like, and I feel like it comes a little bit different from somebody like me. Somebody, my wife told me the other day, I walked out of the bathroom at my kid's wrestling practice and she was like, don't ever say anything about my resting bitch face. She was like, you are horrible. And I was like, what are you talking about? I felt fine.
And all you're thinking of something good too.
Yeah, well, that was the thing, is I was just thinking. And she's like,
what's wrong with you?
Yeah, she gets so many pictures sent to me that say, you look so pissed. And it's Christmas.
Yeah. I'm just like, I was just thinking, and I was thinking good stuff, but I've had to make a conscious effort of that, because it's like, I feel like I represent a part of society that it's like, well, here's this big tattooed, like rough living, dude. And it's like, well, most people already have a preconceived notion of like the person that I'm going to be. So I feel like now it's kind of my duty to be like, hey, man, how are you doing? Like, do you want a hug or do you want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's made me be able to do that because beforehand I would look down at the counter. Yeah, I'm fine. Get my shit and go. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to just leave me the fuck alone. Leave me alone. Don't talk to me. And now it's like, I almost go out of my way to make conversation with people.
That's a shift that's just that you're not capable of making on your own because
I tried a lot.
Right. And I've tried. I mean, there's a real, I say all the time, lasting, significant life change can only happen with a spiritual component. I believe that. I think you had a spiritual experience and it's amazing, man. I got a question for you.
Okay.
Did you ever consider a ceremony like that and doing something like that?
I was going to make the joke that my nose is cold and my jaw's a little bit. I live into it because I mean, my 90s was filled with ceremonies that weren't ceremonies.
Yeah, same.
But 100%, yeah. And so I've even looked at there's people that are microdosing.
And I did that too.
They're like,
I did that before
minor.
I went out there.
Oh, you did?
For like
just
5
to see
weeks.
what it felt like? Yeah.
I felt like I was like, I need something in my system. And I had some microdosing, some profound moments from just microdosing. The first day I took it and it there was a little hour period. I was like, this is weird. But then after that, I was like, wow, the world's cool, man. But I was on an excavator at work. After I was fine, I could do everything. I'm like working heavy machine.
It doesn't inhibit you.
I'm like, man, this is a good day.
I read an article this morning, coincidentally enough, about that like suburban housewives and moms. That's the new thing.
And microdosing.
Yeah.
No, I believe it, instead of wine.
And then I went to read, instead of wine. Then I went to read it, and they wanted $5.99 to read it, and I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, nope, not that interested. So yes, then I mean, you would consider?
Yeah, yeah, I totally would.
Yeah,
I would think. Yeah, yeah. I don't know that I want to go through the conversation of why I don't want to fly on an airplane. I mean, that's perfect. Yeah, I don't know that I want to.
Yeah,
maybe that's why you need to.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I mean, exactly.
Yeah,
you're finishing my sentences for me now.
Because dudes like us, man, especially being older, we got stuff, baggage, man. I mean, you pick it up as you go, and at some point, it gets pretty freaking heavy, man.
Yeah, and you don't get rid of it.
Yeah, and you can only discipline and lift your way to trying to unload so much of it. So that's
bury myself in my work.
Yeah.
I bury myself in not work, which is even tougher.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm being sarcastic, but so it's something. A couple things. I'm going to get just all over the place, but man, journaling this experience that you had would be really beneficial for not just you, but for so many people moving forward.
Yeah.
What a great book.
There's some days I just can't. I'm like, I don't want to do that. But then there's some days, man, it's like something will just put a pen in my hand and I've got a journal and I'll just get to writing. Yeah. And it might be short or long or off the wall or this way or that way. Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about going to Greg's show. So the reason that we're connected today is because we both were fans and we liked Greg's content. Now his story is, for those in the audience that don't yet know, and I think everybody should go listen to his story and listen to his show, but he was a Port of Seattle police officer. And during COVID, he made a video from his squad car talking about how police shouldn't be arresting people for, going to the beach and keeping their businesses open and that type of stuff. And he ended up, through political reasons, getting fired and went on Cleared Hot, which is another one of my favorite shows with Andy Stumpf, and got his message out there. And that's where I first heard Greg, because I listened to Andy Stumpf's show. And then he started his own podcast, and I've been a fan ever since. And he was always standing up against that nonsense. And so when I was going through my stuff last summer, and I shared a lot of this with you in the audience, a lot of them know my story about what I went through with my business partners and things. He kind of motivated me and inspired me to not put up with that crap. So what I did was I jotted down, I went back to an email that I sent him when I was doing my stuff last summer. So
really?
Here's the whole email. I'm not going to read the whole thing because first off, it's hard to see. But secondly, there's a lot in there that is a little disparaging kind of to my former partners and stuff. And I don't want to be that guy. I'm not trying to unpack all that. But the end of it says, I'm not even sure why I typed this to you, Greg, but your mentality and willingness to stand up to the cowards who believe they rule the hearts of real men inspired me to step into the uncertainty of life at 51 years old. Next season of life, let's go. Mm-hmm. And that's what I sent to him. So he responded pretty immediately back. There's some language here. Chris, if you've listened to Greg's show, there's some language here. But I'm going to use the language, okay? So everyone, Mom, beware. Here's his response. Fuck yeah, brother. One life. Never bend a knee to a coward. I'd happily die tomorrow before I'd compromise my values as a man. Fuck, brother. If more men would be willing to take this fairly simple step of zero compromise, our world wouldn't be in the shitstorm it's in. I'm glad you're on a new journey. The universe rewards courage.
I love that, man.
And that gives me goosebumps today. And I'm like, you know what? Right on, man. Yeah. And I just dig this guy. And it's funny how podcasts work because you feel that you kind of, you know the dude. Mm-hmm. You don't. I mean, obviously, but you know him. And so that day and your time with Tyler led to all of a sudden you're on his show.
Well, I just went by and I wanted to tell him like, hey man.
So you went by his jiu-jitsu,
Academy,
Electric North Jiu-Jitsu, I think is what it's called. You can buy his merch there.
And I just went by and I had no intention. I just wanted to tell him, I just want to be like, hey dude, I've listened to you for years and my life is completely different. I'm freaking close to 3,000 miles away from home doing something I've never done, wild story, all this. And I just wanted to tell you, you're a big piece in the puzzle of why I'm here. Mm. And I just wanted to thank him and talk to him. Yeah. And dude, he is the coolest person.
My favorite part of the story, though, is he goes, well, we're about to start Friday Night Roll. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had that thought earlier because his wife, the day before I'd met her, and she was like, yeah, they do like Friday night class. And then the next morning I was like, well, I have to go talk to this dude. I was like, I have to just tell him like what he's doing is good.
Yeah.
And I had that thought earlier. I was like, man, am I in a headspace to go out here and roll around and grapple for the first time in like a couple of years?
Really? Okay.
And then like the more I'm sitting there talking to him and meeting everybody, I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was like, that sounds perfect, man. That sounds like exactly what I need right now, actually. Yeah. No, that dude is awesome. And like I told you last night, like if he turned to me and me only knowing him just on a personal level for a little bit, dude, I'd follow that guy in the battle any day of the week, and I would listen to him too. Mm. I would let him lead from the front. When he come out of his door and I was outside, and he's like, "Hey man, are you David?" I was like, my first thought was, if this was hundreds of years ago, this would have been the person that we followed into battle. Mm. He's that person, man. But at the same time, he's big and he's rough and he's hard. And dude, I mean, I'm telling you, if he told me like, hey man, we need to go do this, I would not question it for a second. I'd say, let's go.
Yeah. So that's leadership.
Yeah. He's a lead. He's a leader. Yeah. And see, the thing is, it's like, I find myself when I get in a position, it's like, okay, nobody else is doing it. I'm leading this shit now. I'm in control. You're all going to listen to me. Yeah. I'm the one that's leading the pack right now. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if we were in a situation and Greg said, I am the one leading the pack right now, there would be nothing in me that would argue that point.
Well, there's nothing a good leader likes more than a better leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, dude. Yeah. And I'm sure there's people that he would follow suit with too. I mean, that's just how it needs to work as a man. And I would follow that dude to do anything because there's something about him.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing about it was we go, we roll, we sit in the sauna, we talk and all this stuff. I don't see him for a couple of days. He had stuff going on. And then that following Monday morning, he's like, let's do the podcast. We go in there, we're chit-chatting, we do the podcast. And I'm telling you, this dude he's big, he's strong, he's violent, he's intense, he cusses, you know what I'm saying? After we got done, we walk out of his office, and the first thing he does is he gives me a hug. And I mean like a big, long, like, thank you hug.
Man.
And that right there,
that.
I do too, because that's what it needs to, that's what we need right there, man. Is that guy has the capacity to take life, and he also has the capacity to love, just like Tyler does, just like I do, just like, and I feel like as men, we've gotten off of that path because we feel like we have to be so far one way. Yeah. It's like, well, man, if you're not just this big, violent, just crazed person, then you're not a man. It's like, well, man, you can be both, and your life's better off if you can be both.
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons that I'm such a proponent of and focus on improved physicality is because I believe our capacity to love, masculine love, increases as we get more capable as a man, because that we have to have
you respect
that level of love can only come from a man who has genuine, authentic confidence. And a big way that we build that authentic confidence is through our physicality as men.
I agree.
So I think that as we get stronger, we can love more. And I'll come back to everything's tied into the physicality, because I think until we get to that point, we're not, because it does take a vulnerability that can only come through being a confident man. In order to love effectively, there's a vulnerability aspect to it. A lot of males aren't comfortable in that vulnerability because of their lack of self-confidence. So there's bravado and there's all this nonsense and these walls that are put up. And that's why as we get stronger, everybody around us gets better. Our relationship with them, our capacity to direct, protect, provide, to love people authentically, and not just women or our families, the intimacy that men need amongst themselves gets overlooked and not discussed. You just said intimacy in men, and we need intimacy with men. Intimacy it's not sexual stuff. It's a closeness. Intimacy is a closeness. And the absence of real masculine love is a problem in our society. And you know who the only people are that are going to bring that back are the strong. Maybe that's getting off on a little bit of a tangent, but I believe that because I know that times that I've been loved on by confident, strong men in my life, I've come alive and it's helped me work through a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think other men can respect it more. When it's like, when I know somebody knows the depths and despair of wanting to quit something real bad because you're sweating and your heart's beating at 170 beats per minute, and then you don't, I gain another level of respect for that. And then we can start to bounce something back and forth off of each other.
Good, man. I like it. A couple things I wanted to pick your brain on for the audience's sake and for my sake. So you're pretty put together, Kat. Obviously, you train, and we're kind of about improving physicality around here. I want to know if somebody's trying to get started. Maybe they are 100 pounds overweight. Maybe they've let themselves go. They are trying to get back at it. They're middle-aged. Why do
you keep pointing at me?
What can that person do, man or woman? What would be your few nuggets you'd give those people in order to improve their physicality fairly immediately?
Quit eating out. Drink water. Don't drink anything but water, and then get some electrolyte packets. Don't drink soda. Quit eating out. If you cook from home, try to eat mostly meat. My diet mostly is of single ingredient foods. meat, and that boils down to this is steak, these are potatoes, this is green beans. So this is what I'm eating. This isn't a concoction of shit.
Yeah.
Quit eating that. If you're that far overweight, just go walk. Just go walk. And then after you walk for a little bit, keep going further and further and further till you. Now if you're walking and you're at 4 miles, good. Go by Walmart and buy a 10 to 20 pound adjustable weight vest and put it on. Well, then walk that now. And just keep doing that. Yeah. So now 4 or 5 months down the road, you've probably already lost. If you've cut out processed foods, you're eating single ingredient foods, you're cooking at home, you're not drinking soda, you're drinking a bunch of water, and you're walking, I'd guarantee you've probably already lost 40 to 50 poans.
Yep.
And there ain't nothing in there that's hard. That is the easiest crap in the world to do. It's not hard. If you think that what I just said is hard,
there's no hope for you.
I hate it for you.
Sorry.
I mean, I really hate it for you.
Yeah.
And you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing your family a disservice because you suck. And I know that sounds harsh, but if you can't make your mind up to say, I'm going to cook my own food and I'm going to go for walks and drink water,
there's a problem.
There's a bad problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you're going to have to do to fix it. Maybe you need to buy a trainer. Maybe you need to buy a mentor. Maybe you need to do, that's fine.
Yep.
People, it's like, that's okay to do.
Yep.
But if you just keep going back to I just need a Coke.
Yeah.
Or I need this, or I need that. You don't need that crap, man.
2 trigger words for me. Well, one of them is the word trigger. But deserve and need. I can't stand when I hear those words. Well, I figure I deserve. Well, I needed. No. You don't. You don't need and you don't deserve.
I feel like I deserve to not need to hear those things again.
See, Bruce is now triggered.
And it's like I told you yesterday. Like, somebody will look. It's like if you really want to be able to say, "Hey, man, like I like eating pizza with my family once a week." Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll train 7 days a week. And when I say train, I'm not telling anybody to do the crap that I do because sometimes I can get out of hand with it.
Yeah.
And it's whatever. If you want to open yourself up to loose calories, you're going to have to make up for that. Because if you've trained and ate good for 6 days straight, and then you go the 7th day and you're like, well, I don't need to train and I'm going to gorge myself. Well, your whole week's screwed. Yeah. Your whole week. I used to be bad about stuff like that. I'd be cutting weight and gaining weight and cutting weight and gaining weight. And one of my things was I would eat good for 7 or 8 days straight. Basically just meat, eggs, and rice. And well, then I would go back and on the 8th day, I'd be like, okay, I'm blowing it out of the water. Well, I would blow it out of the water for breakfast, for lunch, for a snack, for a dinner. Well, I've just ruined everything. And I'd be like, well, man, why am I not losing weight? Or why am I not like seeing the veins in my arms pop? Or why is my cardio, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and guess which one of those you're going to stop? You're going to stop the 7 good days.
Yeah. Once you get to that, a lot of people will. Yeah.
When you start giving yourself like the excuse of, well, I don't feel like it today. Why? Why don't, you need to ask yourself why you don't feel like it today.
You know, I have gotten to a place where, because there's days I don't feel like it, because I've been doing a lot of 2-a-days, and there's days I don't feel like it.
I don't feel like it most days.
So I've just decided to tell myself, okay, it doesn't matter what you feel. Discipline is what's gonna take over here. Mm-hmm. So not motivation, because that's another garbage emotion that I just don't even. It's not even a thing. Like willpower, that's fake too.
Yeah.
Motivation and willpower are fake emotions, but discipline's real. Well, I don't feel like it. Well, too bad. It doesn't matter. You're going to go do it anyway.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like when people say, well, I don't feel like it today. It's like, well, do you feel good about yourself? Do you? It's like, well, no. Then why are you making that compromise?
Right.
You know? It's like, I know things that I can be better at all the time. And it's usually different things. And I'll go through cycles of like, man, I can't run real good right now. Well, for the next 4 to 5 to 6 weeks, I guess I'm running before I lift. And then my lifting will go down. Or I guess I need to, my legs don't feel as strong and endurance. And I guess I'm going to ruck for this. And it's a constant.
That process though makes it fun. That keeps it fresh and exciting too.
And also I've been training for a long time. So it's like, I get bored.
Yep.
I have to, if I go in from and have a prescribed program all the time, I'm not going to follow it. Because there's some days I just want to go outside and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do sandbag work for an hour or 30 minutes. It's not, people make it, and I would also advise people, it's like, buy one of these sandbags and a weight vest and keep it at home. So that way, if you can eliminate the excuse of, why I got to drive to the gym. If you can eliminate that excuse, I like going to the gym, but I also have a gym at home because I know my life, and my wife, she likes training at home. Yeah. But there's a lot of times where people they're like, well, I got to drive all the way and I got to do this, I got to do that. And it's like, make time because everybody's got time. I don't care about people's schedules. Yep. That drives me nuts is hearing, I would see people that I grew up with and they're out of shape. And I know they're miserable and this and that. And, oh, man, still lifting and stuff. I'm like, yeah, man. Why wouldn't I be, Yeah. And they're like, yeah, I wish I had time for that.
Yep.
And the first thing I want to do, I want to say, give me your phone and let me check your screen time. Because if it's 4 hours through the whole day, you're just lying to yourself, man. You are lying. If you've sat around on that phone for 4 hours and you couldn't find 30 to 45 minutes to walk, hell, walk and be on your phone. I don't care, man.
I keep the weighted vest, the weighted backpack in my car. You saw it yesterday. It's always in my car because if I'm going to stop somewhere, I'm going to throw that thing on and go get 30 minutes in.
Yeah.
If I'm super busy that day, I talked to a dude, I won't give his name. I talked to him yesterday, sent a couple texts. This guy was on my heart, pretty overweight guy. Got back in the marketplace and I said, hey, I was just thinking about you. Hey, are you keeping up on your physicality? I haven't heard from you in a long time. Just, want to give you some encouragement. He sends back, well, I've been working 60 hours a week. I have a long commute. I don't have the time. I've really let that go. I probably need to get back on it. And I sent back, well, okay, just start today. Then kind of ... A 60-hour week doesn't mean you can't meal plan, take food to work and drink a gallon of water a day. Oh,
if he's working,
have a good day.
Yeah.
It's a white collar situation. It's a sales situation.
Okay, so he can buy a meal plan.
Yes.
That's the thing too.
That's exactly it, right?
Yes. How many meal prep companies are there today? If you've got the money, buy it. Yeah. Just buy it. We've bought them before. It makes your life easier. I don't do it all the time.
I do it at home with ground beef, and I have hamburgers made and a bunch of veggies made, and just throw it together. I mean, it's not hard. You can figure it out. So,
dude, and if you really want to change yourself, if you really want to, I remember the first time. I told you my wife yesterday. She come to me at one point. She was like, "Hey, dude, I'd gotten so big into powerlifting and just gaining more weight so I could lift more weight." She was like, "You're going to die if you don't lose weight." And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Because I feel like that right now. So I immediately dropped. I think all in all, I ended up dropping 70 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Like that. And dude, it was not hard.
Yeah.
I still just went to the gym. At the time I had a kind of physically demanding job, but not all that bad. But the one thing I kept food with me all the time. So I wasn't I'm hungry, I need to pull off, and I kept snacks with me. And one of those snacks was I just kept hamburger patties in Ziploc bags, and I kept 4 or 5 of them in my lunchbox with a thing of no sugar ketchup or whatever. Yep. And then I would have meals because I knew myself, I knew my job, I knew I was going to the gym. So it was if I had the temptation to be oh man, I need something on my stomach. Well, I've got something. Yep. And it took me an hour on Sunday to make it. Yeah. And if I really got to that point, and I've told my wife this before, if I was starving and I was out there riding around doing I'd go sit in the bathroom and eat. If somebody was going to complain about me eating because I was the only person at work that trained or lived this different lifestyle, nobody understood it, and I got some complaints, I was like, well, I'll just go to the bathroom and eat.
Take my Ziploc with me.
I'll take these hamburger patties and I'll go to the bathroom and eat. And people just make that out to be something that's so hard, and it's so easy. It is so easy.
By the way, speaking of the hamburger patties, thank you again for the cow advice. This has changed my life. Having this freezer full of quality beef.
Would you buy like a whole cow?
Yeah.
We split.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in Nebraska.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's just changed everything.
Yeah,
and it's so much different than store stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I love the fact that our cow eats. I mean, it still has corn, right? It's finished with corn, which is
Who cares,
whatever. I know,
man?
but I love the marbling. But the corn is literally grown, down the street
On the same, probably on the same
Yeah,
farm.
same farm. Yeah.
So it's
But that's changed everything
fantastic.
too, and it's actually a more efficient financially, efficient way to go.
Yeah.
So there's ways to plan this stuff out. You don't have to be wealthy to eat healthy.
No, and that's going back to me saying one of the 3 things is I'm going to eat single ingredient food.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, it's expensive to eat healthy. It's like, dude, if all you're buying is vegetables, meat, eggs,
it's not, and you're more full. So you can
eat more and more and more. Yeah.
Have you priced cereal? It's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Because Allie's daughter eats cereal, and I'm like, cereal boxes are now, by the way, this big. They used to be giant, and they're this big, and they're like $8. I'm like,
That's
what
crazy.
are we talking about?
Yeah.
You know how much meat you can get for $8?
Yeah.
This blows my mind, but it is what it is. Last night at dinner, and I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but we were talking about training. You mentioned to me that you had a particularly dark day, and I wanted to talk to you about this briefly on the show, and how you made the decision I'm going to go to the gym, and then if I still feel how I felt, maybe I'll go ahead and do that then. Would you be willing to unpack a little bit about what you told me?
Yeah, there was
in regards to that.
That was more times than one. I'd gotten to the point where I was just like unhinged with my own life. And I'm like, you know what, man? I'm not doing anybody, just the same thing. I'm not doing anybody any good. I think I'm all done living this life. But you know what? I think today might be the day I end my own life. But I'm going to go to the gym one more time. There's some guys there waiting on me. We're always there on these nights. We're doing this, we're doing that. I'm going to go there I'm going to go there tonight. They know I'm supposed to be there. I know that they're there. Yeah. I'm going to go squat.
And this is going to be my last workout.
Yeah. And then I'll do it after. So I'm going to do this. I'm not going to live anymore, but I'm going to go do this first because I enjoy this a lot. Yep. And I would go and do it. And then it was like, on the ride home, usually the gym I was at the time was probably a 30-minute drive from my house. I'm like, I can probably make it longer than this. I'll wait. Yeah. I'll wait. I'm not there right at this moment.
It's hard for a lot of people, I'm sure, that are listening to this to understand that bargaining that goes on. I'll make it another day. I'm good. I'll do another day. It's hard to make them understand what that feels like, but it's real. And when you talk about, when people say, hey, start working out, it saved my life. And
I believe that.
That's a real example.
I believe that.
When you told me that last night, that hit me. That's powerful, because I think of all the people that, I have to go work out.
Yeah, you don't have, you get to.
You were to the place where the last thing I'm going to do
that I enjoy.
Yeah. My joy is found here, and my camaraderie with other men. I'm going to go do that, and I'm going to live up to my accountability that I have with these dudes, because we encourage each other, we're there spotting each other. We're this is our group. I'm going to go do my part there, and they're not going to know what's going to happen when we're done.
Because I would never tell anybody.
Nope, me neither.
Suffered alone.
Quiet desperation.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's powerful. That level of transparency, there is value in that, and it's hearing you on Greg's show, spending time with you yesterday and today. This has helped me a lot. and I don't do the show just from selfish reasons, but it has touched me. It has helped me to see a strong, powerful, authentic dude be that transparent and vulnerable and open.
Inspiring.
It is. And this level of manhood this is what it's going to take in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a freaking mess out there. And this is what it's going to take. It's going to take, and this is my misogynistic portion of the show, it's going to take real leadership from real men to turn this thing back around. So I applaud you for being that dude. I have another question. So I'll just spring this one on you. I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience would get benefit from it as well. Any other podcasts that you're into? Anything you've recently read, any books that you would recommend to somebody that's, I'm a little bit in a dark place, I'm a little bit lost. Is there anything I can read? Is there a show I can listen to? Is there anywhere that you would refer those types of people that's helped you out?
Didn't expect that question.
I knew I'd get him with one.
Yeah. And I think now too, especially, I like to listen to men on podcasts that I know that are better than me. When I catch a wind of someone that it's like, and it's hard because I try to pull value. I'm trying at this moment in life to pull value from everybody and everything.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy taking tidbits from men that are in places that I see myself being and that are having an impact on others that I like, that I want to eventually have. So someone like Greg, and I know, I'm going to go down the list of whoever, I like listening to Andy on Cleared Hot.
Yeah, me too.
I don't listen to Jocko's full length stuff all the time, but I've read his books and I do enjoy listening to a lot of his stuff.
Jocko
because it
was
is so
my
simple.
first entry into podcasts. I never even knew what a podcast was, and I came upon him, so he got me into.
Yeah, well, it's simple. He was on Chris Williamson's podcast a while back.
Another great show.
Another great. I like Chris, and he was like
so smart.
Yeah.
He asked him, he's like, "What do you say to these guys that are getting older and can't do that?" And he was like, "Train, do jujitsu, stretch, eat good food, drink water."
Yep, straightforward. No nonsense.
I like that because I feel like a lot of the stuff he says that's that simple, it really is that simple.
It is. Did you know that I think it was yesterday's show, maybe it was the day before, that Andy Stump was on Priscilla's podcast?
Yeah, and Priscilla.
That was a great show.
Yeah.
The
Really?
Andy and Andy show. That was freaking good.
I love listening to that cat.
Yep.
He is, because he doesn't care.
Yep.
That's
the thing that's that's with
people
Greg
that just,
too.
People that
they don't care.
There's people that don't care. They're like, man, I've got money, I've got this, I got a platform, I can say whatever I need to say.
Yep.
And I like that in people because there's no ass kissing behind these men.
Yep.
Each one of these people I'm naming off, probably ain't kissing ass.
Yep.
Probably not doing it. There's another smaller podcast I'd tell people to listen to. It's called Peace, Love, and Meat. And it's from a guy. There's two hosts, and one of them's name is Brandon Lilly. And Brandon has lived very close to the same life that I've lived. Big time power lifter. Huge, like just ruined his home, ruined his life, estranged me, got divorces, not a good relationship with his kid. And he ended up blowing like both of his knees out in a competition one day. And he started going down this really dark path, got to the point he wanted to kill himself, finally reached out. He got some help with some psychedelics and it changed his life.
No
and now
kidding.
he's on this completely different path where he's like, helping people and he's working all these cool working like these he's really in the space of kind of where like I see kind of my life going as well.
Check it out.
Yeah. But
So pretty soon you're going to be on that show.
yeah, hopefully. I've reached out to him to tell him, be like, hey, because I've followed him for, if I'm 32, probably close to 8-9 years.
Oh, wow.
And I
like it.
His path is so freaking close to what, and just where he came from and what he's done and the way he got to be a better person. I mean, it's kind of odd how close it is. Yeah,
those are great shows. I appreciate that.
That's also kind of a hunting show. Like, they talk a lot about archery.
Are you a Cam Haines fan?
So, funny story. When I left Greg's, I wanted to go. Do you keep up with so you know the bow rack, the archery shop he takes everybody to for his show. Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty close. I was like, I'm gonna go check it out.
Oh yeah, it's like a pilgrimage.
Yeah. I was like, they're not far.
I'm out here anyway.
Yeah, I'm out here anyways. It's pretty close. So he had done a podcast with the guy that owns the bow rack, Wayne Endicott, and Wayne said some things in that podcast, and he is like, dude, this guy, I love what he does for work, but man, he could be a pastor. He's awesome, man. Yeah. You want to talk about somebody that can really preach the word of God? Awesome. That man can. And he said some things in that podcast, and this was the couple weeks leading up to me leaving, that I just was just hammering me in my heart, man. Just the way he was talking and the way he was talking about life and the way he was talking about his wife and his friends and how, and I was like, this is a good man. I was like, this man right here, and I listened to it a few times over and over. And I was like, this is a good man. Like, this is a noble, successful, godly man who's also had somewhat of a past. Yeah. But also now is just like living this amazing life, you know? Yeah. And I was like, I felt the need. I was like, I want to go tell him how much that impacted me. So I drove down there. Plus, I just wanted to go to the archery shop, you know? And I drove down there and he wasn't in there. And I was like, damn. He owns this place. He's in there every day. Yeah. I heard his wife say he wasn't in there. I'm like, whatever. Maybe it wasn't meant to be, or maybe I'll come back tomorrow. Well, then here he is walking through the door. And I was like, oh, man. And I couldn't, dude. He was like in a hurry. He was doing stuff. Yeah. And I said, hey, man, can I talk to you for a minute? And we went outside and we talked for like an hour.
What?
And I said, hey, man, you don't have to I just wanted to let you know. And he's like, no, this is more important, what we're talking about right here. He's like, this right here is what's important. He's like, I'll get back to my other stuff. And me and him sat there and we talked, and he gave me his number. And I told him, I said, hey, man, if you get a chance, I said, tell Cam, like, because I've listened to his book and I implement a lot of shit that he says, where it just, as far as being like, hey, man, I was just a broke, nobody, loser, redneck, and now I just put in work, and now look at where I'm at. Yeah. That resonates with me hard because I'm come from the same spot, you know? And I said, hey, man, just tell him, like, his book has helped me, and like, dude, he just, like, him and you and y'all's conversation and his book and his podcast and just some of he's just got snippets of things that he said that have resonated with me and it's stuck with me, and it's brought me here today, and it's kept a gun out of my mouth. And I just want you to know that. Wow. And if you could, just tell him that. And he was like, well, why don't you just tell him? So he gave me his contact information, and I reached out to him. He told me, he said, listen, dude, if he don't reach back out to you, the dude's busy. He's got like a bunch of phones. And I said, I understand. Yeah. I reached out to him and I told him very in-depthly, like what I was, what I was trying to get across to him. Yeah. And I was like, hey, man, I don't need nothing from you. I said, but I just want you to know, like, because I hear him say all the time, like, he's like, I'm just some guy, you know, and I'm like, dude, I just want you to know, like, you're not just some guy. Like, you are doing something that's great and that a lot of people aren't doing. And you give somebody like me, who's this small town loser, hope that if, like, man, well, if I just kind of have some faith and bust my ass and just keep going and going and going and going, I can get to a spot like you. Yeah. Because if you can do it, well, now since you've done it, another man's done it. Well, now I have permission to do it because it's already been done. So why can't I do it? Yeah. So I really hope that at some point in time, like he finds that and we can talk, and because I admire that man, but I also admire, Wayne said some things to me that day at the bow rack, and he was like, I was like, man, if I would have had someone like this in my life, and
Yeah.
I quit thinking like that a long time ago, but that man, that is a man, that right there is a true man of God. You want to talk about somebody that was just like willing to listen to me. And because I started off with telling him how bad of a person I was.
Right.
I was like, hey man, I'm horrible. And he was like, yeah. He's so. And I'll tell you another thing that lets me know that, he's like, yeah, whatever, man. You good now, ain't you? And a big thing about that was how I knew he was walking the walk when he was talking about all this stuff was, he said, well, hey man, next time you come out here, he said, contact me. He gave me his number. He said, contact me. He said, let me know. He's like, you can stay at my farmhouse. He said, there's trucks out there. I'll give you the keys to it. You and your family can stay out there.
What? No. Who does that?
And I was like, man, you don't, he's like, oh no, man, you let me know. He said, fly your bow out here. We'll get it set up. We'll go out here. We'll shoot. We'll eat dinner. We'll do this. And I'm like, I've known this guy for an hour.
Man.
And all he knew about me was that I was just a fuck up, and that I wanted better at it, and that I wanted better.
Yeah, that's the next thing you're saying, that you wanted different.
I wanted different, and I made a decision to be different, and that's all he cared about. He was just like, right. I told him like, man, I've done this, and he's just like, he didn't care. Yeah. He didn't care one bit, man. He's like, yeah, we've all been there, bud.
Yep.
But you're not there now.
Yep.
So, and that's all that matters.
Man, that's good.
That's awesome.
Let's get to the place where we're going to wrap up, and I want to look forward a little bit. What's next, man? Where do your passions lie? What are you going to do?
I told you yesterday, I don't have like a degree or anything, but I've been reaching out to some. Yeah.
He's got a bunch.
Yeah. I've been reaching out to some people at the local high school that has the wrestling club that my kid is in. I kind of want to I would really enjoy to be able to take over like their strength and conditioning. I feel like I could help. I feel like I could help the kids. I feel like and I'm not saying anything, but I feel like I know better. I remember what, when I was going through school, and our coach, God bless him, great man, great coach. It was just like an extra thing he had to do to strengthen and condition us. Now he loved it because he was freaking jacked. I mean, he walked the walk like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And he loved it, but I also knew it was just an extra thing he's dealing with 50 kids. He's a coach. He's got to deal with other coaches and teachers and parents. Yeah. And I've been throwing that around. I don't know how it works where I'm from. A lot of states now, they actually hire just strength and conditioning coaches for high school athletes, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's amazing that that people are coming around to that.
Kind of almost the most important job somebody could have at high school.
Because if anything, you're not getting the kids hurt. You're keeping them from getting them hurt by making them stronger. And I find a lot of value in that.
Because at that age, you got so much testosterone flowing through you.
And
ego. You're going to push yourself way farther. You're going to wake up hurt, and you're not going to care. You're going to work through it.
Yeah. And so if that doesn't work out, I've been telling my wife, and I've actually already got some kids probably in the next week or two. We got a gym in our garage. We've got some specialty equipment in there that's just to make people stronger and faster and bigger. And so I'm actually going to have some kids start coming to the house, and I'm going to start training them. I'm going to do it for free. They're not in any position, nor their parents, to pay me. I'm not in any position to ask them for money. I would really like for that to build upon itself to a point where I've got a facility, and my main focus is middle high school athletes. I can train grown-ups, but a lot of times I feel like they're more apprehensive to suggestions and like certain training modalities. Like they think, well, I'm not going to look good doing this stuff. And it's like, it's part of a process, man. I really do feel like too, I would like to start training like youth kids. I'm talking like 8 to 12, because I feel like kids nowadays, like they don't move their bodies the same way we used to. They're not jumping and throwing and riding bikes and stuff like that. And they're sitting in freaking school all day, like, you know, and so I would really like to have that to be a part of it too. But just at the moment, it's super bare bones. Like I picked some kids that are physically already big and strong to just kind of help them out and like, you know, get their necks bigger and to get them to jump faster and higher and get their grips better and stuff like that. Because I know some of those stuff that a high school coach isn't going to know. So eventually, if the thing with the school itself or any school surrounding us where we live right now doesn't work out, I would like to just kind of work into having my own facility with just, you know, groups of kids, stuff like that. Financially, that's going to be there's some stuff that I'm going to have to acquire that's going to require for me to be able to have the ability to do what I want to do with certain athletes. You know what I'm saying? So that'll be in a process itself. And, you know, I want to start a podcast. Also, again, a financial thing of just, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I'm figuring it out. I'll figure it out. Yeah. And I said this before, and I told this to Greg, and we were like off. This was just when me and him were sitting in his office. I was like, when I used to be younger, I used to envision myself being like a motivational speaker to people. I said I could see myself like telling people like these stories and all this stuff, and them like a TED Talk person. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And like people pulling value from that, and then people like paying me to do things like that. And I think it's not right now.
Or it might be.
It might be, yeah. Mm-hmm. But eventually I would like to lead into that as well. The more that I learn about myself, and I would really like to direct it. You know, I think anybody can get anything from it, but I'd also like to kind of direct it for men. Like we're lost as men.
Agreed.
I mean, this freaking world's getting bad, dude. Yep. And there's nobody that's stepping up and leading. And I think that's a big part of it, is that nobody's taking the initiative anymore to say, I'm going to be better. I'm going to train freaking hard. I'm going to say what I need to say. I'm going to say no to the things I need to say no about. I'm going to make it public. I'm going to put myself out there.
Yep.
And that's the way it's going to be. And if you agree and you want to follow suit, come on, because I'm going on this ride, because this is where we need to go.
Exactly where I'm at, man. We're on the same mission. Strategic partnerships are important.
Yeah.
Finding men that are on the same path. And I think that as you build those, as I'm trying to build them, I think things are going to happen exactly how they're supposed to happen.
I think they seem to happen. They've seemed to kind of unfold in that way.
That's exactly right. Yeah. You and I have a lot of things in common. And one of the most important things is, I think we've both made the decision that we're done making money based upon what we do. We're going to make money based upon who we are. Mm-hmm. And that's where the most impact is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And you're already making a huge impact. I know you're impacting me, and I know you're impacting our audience. And a lot of people have listened to Greg's show and Tyler's show. And this has been a pretty short amount of time. And I am super excited to see where this goes.
Yeah.
I'm honored that you came out here to spend time with us. This has been a wonderful weekend.
Oh yeah. Thank you for having me.
You're a special dude. I hope this is the beginning of a real partnership and friendship. And I'm glad to know you, man. So thank you so much. I'm going to tell people how to get a hold of you, if that's cool.
Before you do that,
go.
I want everybody to know about how this has worked. So I told you yesterday, I was telling my wife, I said, I was almost apprehensive to come out here because I listened to you. Obviously we're going to check each other out. Yeah. And I told her, I said, man, what am I going to learn from this guy? I said, he's so different than me. I was like, like, you've lived this life. I've lived this life. I was like, what? And it was just this little thing, like this little hang up where I'm like, man, what am I going to, why are we, you know what I mean? We go and we walk and we talk yesterday, and then we go and we eat dinner, and I go back, and I had time to kind of sit and think on that. And I realized by thinking me even having that thought, while it be natural, is the same thought that most men use and let control them, and it gets in their way. Because while you have certain things to offer, I have certain things to offer, so does everybody else. But we got to, especially as men in America in this day and age where shit's not good, don't look like it's getting a lot better.
Right.
Break that wall down. We've all got there is something in everybody to offer.
Yeah.
There is something.
For sure.
It didn't take but what did we walk around for, an hour or something?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half. And I already knew. I was like, well, he does have things to offer. And I also do that. We can bounce off of each other, and he can help me do this, and then maybe I can help him do this, and then it becomes, well, I know this person that Jim needs help with. He needs help with this problem. Well, I know this person, so I'm going to put them in contact, and that's how it starts.
Yep.
But we're so closed off because our egos are so freaking big as men that we're like, I don't need any. I'll figure it out. Well, dude, if you're figuring it out at a 45 an hour a week job that you freaking hate, and you're so stubborn that you won't ask nobody for help, and you hate your life, and you're out of shape, and you don't feel like your wife loves you as much, or you don't love your wife as much, or you're not being the best dad you can be, you're not going to figure it out. And what you need to do is, first off, look at yourself and realize you're fucked up, and that it's okay.
Yeah. Because
we all are very, very much that way, and that's okay. But just ask somebody, if you don't even want to call it asking for help, ask somebody for some guidance. Yeah. Reach out to other people that are willing to put themselves out there and be accessible, because they're putting themselves out there for a reason. If somebody's on a social media platform and they're all over it all the time, and they're saying things you like, that you're like, man, yeah, I think like that. I would like to do that. I'd like to work out like that guy. He seems to be a good dad. Well, just reach out to him, man.
Let him know.
Let him freaking know. I've got a guy, he texted me the other day. This is a dude from my hometown. Haven't talked to him in God knows how long, if really ever. I mean, just in passing type of thing. He emails me after the Greg show. He's like, hey man, I listen to him, and I just listen to your stuff and this and that. And it's like, dude, we're so on the same path. Never would have.
And you're that close.
And we're that close, and I never would have figured it out or known it if he wouldn't have reached out, and then me reached back to him, and back and forth and back and forth. And now it's like, well, hey man, what can we do together? Because you got a group of people, I got a group of people, you're good at this, I'm good at this. What happens? What's going to happen if you take your friends and I take my friends, and now we're all mixing them together, and we're starting to get something crazy going? Yep. And all it is just reaching out to another dude. Yep. And saying, hey man, I like what you're doing.
Or here's an email.
Or hey man, can you shoot me some advice or something like that? It's not freaking hard. And if you feel like you want to do it, there's probably a reason to do it. So just do it.
I agree. I'm going to throw your email and your Insta out there. You cool with that?
Oh yeah.
Email. So I don't know if you have these memorized, so I got them for you.
Yeah.
So D Chatman, Chatman 6609 at gmail.com. Insta, kind of new, looks like.
Very new.
D_Chatman 1111. And reach out if anyone didn't get those, or I guess rewind, or reach out to me.
I'll put them up on the screen.
There you go. I'm happy to get that stuff to you too. This has been pretty cool. You got anything else to finish up with?
No. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Great meeting you.
Yeah.